And welcome to the October 14th, 2014 regular meeting of the Waterloo Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission. I hereby call the meeting to order. And our first item of business is approving the agenda, which I think tonight is the same we have presented. There's no changes,
Yes.
correct? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye, motion carried. The next item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of our last regular board meeting. It was on September 9th of 2014.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved and second.
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The chair votes aye, motion carried. Next
Hey,
week.
Mike, before we go any further on the agenda, there was one item that was removed.
Oh, I'm
before we
sorry.
approved the agenda.
Okay.
So it's not listed on here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there was an item that was, it was, I believe, 915 East 3rd Street for conversion of a single-family, or a duplex, excuse me, to a threeplex. That one has been withdrawn by the applicant. So there has been notices that were sent out, so I just wanted to let anybody
okay.
know if they are here for that request that has been withdrawn from.
No, we still do
The
have the
agenda.
request. It's B2 for, there's a property to put a single-family home to a
Yeah,
three-unit dwelling at
correct.
532 Independence.
Correct.
That's still on the agenda, though.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and next on the agenda is our financial report. And for that, I turn it over to Noel Anderson.
Yes. This is Anderson with staff. The reporting is through the end of August, which should put us at about 16%. As you go down through the different revenue and expenditures, we're right around the 16% mark. Some of them are a little bit higher, some are a little bit lower. Again, some of that is just one-time payments that'll make them appear a little bit higher at this time of year for some of the revenue, or for some of the expenditures for insurance and things like that. Some of the property sales are lagging this early in the year, so we'll hopefully get those to catch up. Otherwise, we should be on target for pretty much everything.
Great, any questions or discussion? If not, entertain a motion to approve the financial report for August 2014.
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us then to oral presentations, where if there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the commission on an item that's not on the agenda, you can do so now. Is there anybody that would like to step forward? Again, it's just for items that are on the agenda. If there's something that's on the agenda, we'll get to that. Well, there'll be a time for public comment when we get to those during the meeting. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our first agenda item for action, and we start out with a group of two hearings on rezones and site plan amendments. And the first one that's in our packet is a request by GMJ2 Industries to rezone 61 acres basically around Shawless and Texas Street. And I will read a motion to get the hearing open, and then we'll go on to information. The time is now 4:05 p.m., and a hearing is scheduled at this time. This is a request by GMJ2 Industries to rezone 61.11 acres from A1 Agricultural District, C2 Commercial District, and M1 Light Industrial District to R1 RP Planned 1 and 2 Family Residence District to allow for the construction of new single-family homes generally located north of East Shawless Road and east of East Texas Street. At this time, we should receive and place on file a statement of verification signed by Patty McGee stating, I, Patty McGee, do hereby certify that a copy of the attached letter and aerial photos was mailed to each individual on the attached list by regular mail on October 1, 2014. Could we have a motion to receive and place this notice on file, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. So we got that on the agenda. And right now, we'll go to our staff report with Tim Andera.
This is Andera staff. This proposed rezone area is located near and east of the intersection of East Shawless Road and Highway 218, which is otherwise known as LaPorte Road. The roads adjacent to this area are East Shawless Road, which is classified as a collector street, Texas Street, which is classified as a local street, and Highway 218, which is classified as a principal arterial. The rezone area in question is mostly comprised of A1 Agricultural District and M1 Light Industrial District. There is an area of C2 Commercial District located towards the center of the property. To the north, the property in question is existing light industrial development zoned M1 Light Industrial District. To the south is single-family residences zoned A1 Agricultural District and R1 1 and 2 family residence district. To the east is the Iowa Northern Railroad zoned A1 Agricultural District and single-family residence zoned R2 1 and 2 family residence district. To the west, there are some light commercial uses on the west side of Texas Street and single-family residences zoned M1 Light Industrial District. The majority of the rezone area is located within the Zone AE 100-year floodplain, as indicated by the Flood Insurance Administration's flood rate map, panel number 308F, dated July 18, 2011. There are some areas on the south and east sides of the property that are not located within a floodplain. A portion of the floodway of Sink Creek encroaches on the northern part of the parcel in question. The applicant has submitted a conceptual plan that shows the land being platted into 80 residential lots with a new street network. The lot layout as submitted develops lots along the northern portion of the site, but south of the floodway district. This would appear to help preserve the floodway designated areas to continue to allow for proper drainage in the area. It would appear that the lots start at least 100 to 150 feet south of the north property line. When the site is developed for residential purposes, the new structures would need to adhere to the floodplain provisions noted within the zoning ordinance, most notably that the lowest floor elevation shall be at least 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain elevation. The engineer for the applicant has noted that they intend to excavate areas on the site for 2 to possibly 3 ponds, with the fill that is excavated from those ponds to be used to elevate the property out of the floodplain. There are also plans to clean out the floodway channel of debris to allow for better flowage of water, and the applicant intends to file a letter of map revision with FEMA to remove the site from the floodplain. Future land use map designates this area as industrial. This rezone request is not in conformance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan for this area. If the rezoning of the property is approved, the future land use map should be amended to reflect the projected development of this land for low-density residential uses. The site in question is located within the primary growth area and can be served by the extension of existing utilities in the area. The R1 RP planned residence district would only allow for 1 and 2 family uses, and many residential uses with a higher density than that would need to be in a zoning district zone for multiple family uses. The engineer for the project has noted that the property owner wants this development to be for single family uses only. Per the conceptual plan, there would be lots developed that abut the industrial uses to the north. However, it would appear to be those lots would be buffered by the floodway of Sink Creek, which would be 100 to 150 feet south of that existing industrial development. Staff would note it is not ideal to have residential and industrial development abutting one another, but also believes the buffer area can be designed to allow for the two uses to coexist. The drainage way may work as a buffer area to further screen one use from the other. The existing industrial park development and existing houses along East Shawless Road make this development of land inevitable and prime for new development. If entirely developed for industrial as shown on the future land use map, this could allow for greater conflict between existing houses to the south along East Shawless Road and future industrial development. When the applicant begins the process of platting the land into residential lots, staff would like to have the entire area be preliminarily platted so that existing and proposed contours of the site can be reviewed before final platting the land in multiple phases. Staff recommends that the request to rezone from A1 Agricultural District, C2 Commercial District, and M1 Light Industrial District to R1 RP Planned Residence District be approved for the following reasons. Site in question would appear to provide sufficient space to meet all required regulations, including setbacks, drainage, landscaping, and screening, etc. It would not appear that rezoning the land to R1 RP would have a negative impact upon the area. The request is located within the primary growth area and can be serviced by the extension of existing utilities in the area. And the planned residence district allows for a greater influence on exact layout, especially given the proximity to other houses in the area and plans to abut industrial developed land to the north, with the condition that the uses within the rezone area be limited to single-family uses only.
Are there any questions for staff?
This is Thornsberry. How often does St. Creek flood?
I don't know the exact time when it last flooded, but we can look
Nate?
into that. Do you know, Eric? It's more of a, I think St. Creek's more of a tributary to the Cedar River, so it probably more than likely handles a lot of runoff rather than backing up into it, but we can look into it.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if not, is there anybody in the audience that would like to discuss this, or the applicant is here? Okay, if so, please come forward, just state your name and your address.
Yes, my name is Jim Ellis. I own JDE Engineering. You'll see our name coming up here a little bit farther on the agenda, but I also own GMJ2 Industries. We are the engineer for the applicant. The applicant is Rick and Julie Kiefer, who own the property in question. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about the development. So.
And are there any questions from the commission?
What's your experience of the floodway there at St. Creek?
Of the floodway itself, usually in dry weather situations, there are many times that it has no water in it at all. It is an area that drains, basically the drainage area to that side. When it does flood, it comes in fairly quickly and it leaves fairly quickly. In dry periods, you actually see farther to the east where the drainage way will actually disappear into one of the farm fields because it actually soaks into the ground until you get quite a little bit of flow, and then it actually makes it, we can trace it all the way to the Cedar River. But when you get a lot of rain, the last one that I know of was probably about less than a year ago when there was 6 inches of rain in that area. If you remember, the water came up quickly and it flooded the intersection of 218, came over Shawless Road right in that intersection. That intersection is the overflow channel. The southern area that we can see up here on the screen is the overflow channel. That the main floodway is to the north side of the property, and you can see the floodway boundary at the very north edge in white there, the dashed lines in white. That's actually the floodway boundary. We're intending not to fill. We don't want to fill in the floodway. In fact, one of the ideas is that we will clean out the floodway from the trees and the debris and widen the channel through there to address some of the drainage concerns and use part of that material as fill. All of the area that we're proposing for the houses would be raised to at least 1 foot above the 100-year flood elevation. So all the houses would be out of the floodplain. Not only the houses, in my experience, depending on the financial institution that you deal with, some financial institutions will have a mortgage on a property as long as the house is not is at 1 foot above floodplain elevation. Some institutions, such as Wells Fargo especially, have a tendency not to want to hold a mortgage on a property if the property is touched by the 100-year floodplain. So the goal here is to raise not only the houses but also the properties so they're all above 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain. In addition to that, drainage is a big issue, of course, in this one, in the fact that the Kiefers own this property. They also own property farther to the south and the west. just downstream of the Summerlin addition. We all know about the issues in Summerlin. The goal of the Kiefers here in this project is to create a series of lakes through this area, through the southern area. The existing lake to the far northeast side would be expanded to approximately twice that size. The lake out there right now, I'm told, is 40 feet deep, and it first developed where birch used the material to level their site. So that's how the lake got there in the first place, from what I understand. But we would take that, probably double the size of the lake, clean that out, and use that material as fill material, and then also create, if you could bring up the actual drawing of the site, all the area that track B to the north would become lake. All of this area down here between lots 1, 2 through 5 and 49 through 52, that would be a second lake. And we would create that so those lots would have kind of lakefront property, but we'd also use that material for fill also. All the streets are proposed to be 31-foot back-to-back residential streets, all paved with concrete. Utilities would be put in up to city standards and would become city utilities once they're complete. All the streets would be public. And all the lots would range, we're trying to keep them around that 0.4 acres, but they're ranging 0.4 to 0.5 acres. So we'd like to see that half an acre size, so that the houses we're hoping would be in the $250,000 to $350,000 range. So that's where we're shooting for. So if there's any other questions, I can sure answer
Got it.
those.
Anyone else? If not, thank you, Jim.
Yep, no problem.
Anyone else in the audience would like to discuss this?
Hi, Carolyn Cole, 836 Lynn K. Lee Drive in Waterloo. I am the Ward 2 Council Representative, and this area is right in the middle of Ward 2. And when it rains, my phone rings. A lot of this area, and I'm not saying this area, which is zoned industrial, and I'm wondering why we would deviate so extremely from that. A lot of homes in Cedar Terrace don't have storm sewers, and so I would just plead with you to really take into account not just this area, but the whole area, because we know this will affect everything. So that's just my 2 cents worth from talking to people on the phone for 11 years.
Yes. Thank you, Carolyn. Anyone else?
I guess just one comment in relation to Councilperson Cole's comments. Jim, could you come back up? I guess one question would be, in your opinion or expertise, as the lakes are developed in this area, would there be a way to, or maybe that'd be their desire to obviously have those filled with water, so would that be detaining more water that normally would be going through this area to the Cedar Terrace area? Would there be a way to raise how fast it would be going into their area or anything like that, or?
Well, that's our goal. Our goal is to make more volume for retainage in the area, slow the water down, use the water as a nice feature in the area. There is a well on the property, and we may have to pump once in a while to keep the lakes full. The outlet structure to the north and the west side of the site is a series of pipes underneath the road. There is, that makes a set elevation for the outlet of the area. So if we provide more volume in this area to hold water, which that's our goal, then we're going to, it actually, whenever the water gets up to that maximum elevation, that's when the water would spill over. So there is a natural high water level for the area right now, and that's where we want to make more volume in the site to take more runoff and keep it there as long as we can, soak it in the ground. But like I say, you don't want to have a dry lakes in the middle of an area. So we may have to, in drier times, pump it full. You know, that takes some special grading in the bottom of the lake. It's more of a clay type lining in the bottom of the lake to keep that water from soaking into the ground. But that's where, when we do the detailed drainage study through the area, that will have to be well documented. And for FEMA, if we do a letter of map revision, we're going to have calculations and drawings like this to show them what the 100-year flood extents looks like in the proposed condition, in the existing versus the proposed condition. So there is a fairly detailed drainage study that needs to be accomplished through this process.
Okay, and just for my clarification, I think it sounds like the concern is certainly don't want to make anything worse
Sure.
for the neighbors around there in
Sure.
Cedar Terrace. But
Yep.
in this process, what we're looking at right now is a hearing on the rezone. Does it still require the site plan?
We turned in a conceptual drawing
Okay.
at this point showing the whole 83 lots that
Yeah.
would be created. We would come back, it's our proposal that we come back at the next planning and zoning meeting next month
Okay.
and bring the preliminary and the final plats
With more detailed,
with basically they'd show the lot layouts and the
Gotcha.
building setbacks. There wouldn't be, in the first phase, there wouldn't be the detailed drainage study because the first phase consists of the original 11 lots that are north of Shawless Road. That would be the first phase. I don't know if you can bring that up again, Noel. It shows the lot layouts. Lots 1 through 12 would be the first phase. It would be on the north side of Shawless, right through there. That would be the first edition, so it would be Kiefer Estates first edition. And then the second phase would be everything to the east, up through lots number 48. And the third phase would be everything on the west side of the overflow channel. I did hear when Tim gave the staff report that they'd like to see preliminary plat for the whole thing, which is fine. We can do that. Also showing proposed and existing and proposed contours
okay.
for the whole thing.
And that would come back at another meeting. That would be up for approval as well.
Yes, it probably wouldn't be up for approval next month because it'll only be we'll have the preliminary plat,
Okay.
but we'll only have that final plat of those first 12 lots across the bottom, which takes practically no grading whatsoever. That's a very heavily wooded section of the property. That's the only heavily wooded section of the property. So there's basically very little to no grading on that section.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
This is Thornsberry, I have a question. So tonight, if we approve this request to rezone from ag and commercial to residential, that's one step. And then next time, we would approve the plat, but without the benefit of the drainage plan? Is that what I heard? That,
Well, we have the preliminary plat. We can put the preliminary plat together for the whole addition, but the final plat, which would be the first 12 lots, would only be lots 1 through 12. There's no public infrastructure to put in for those initial 12 lots, no roads, no grading. We would come back with a final plat for the next phase. If we need to provide the drainage calculations up front, we can do that. It just depends on what engineering would require.
And I
And
guess
this is
what-
Anderson with staff, and really the preliminary plat is kind of the key document when you're looking at how the drainage works through here, because it's got the existing contours, the proposed contours, so from that, our engineering department will look at some of those and how that water's gonna flow through there and then calculations.
before approval is actually finally given to build.
Correct.
Correct. And that's what I was getting at, that what we're being asked to do today is to rezone but not approve, that it would still have to come back here, still have to go through site approval, that sort of thing, getting to the question of what would be done to make sure the water was taken care of on this development, but then also for the neighbors as
Mhm.
well. So,
And we'll have to look at that. I'll have to talk with the owners about that. If we're going that far with the drainage calculations and the preliminary plat, we'll have to see if they want to move ahead with a larger final plat.
Okay.
That's possible,
Mhm.
because that's quite a little bit of work to go through. So may not be the best way to move forward if you take it 3 sections at a time.
Okay.
So maybe a bigger final plat. So.
Got it. Any further questions? Discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to rezone to R1 RP, subject to the conditions listed. Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm new at this, chairing the meeting. We gotta close the public hearing, right? Okay, and then we'll bring the motion back. Ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Thornsberry, I
Sorry.
move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion carried. The hearing is closed, and now we can move on to the motion to take action on this. Dead.
yeah, I'll go ahead again.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the rezone to R1 RP, subject to the conditions listed.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And chair votes aye, motion carried. Okay, the next item on our agenda is another site plan amendment. Jim, it looks like we may have you back on this one too. The time for this one is 4:27 PM, and a hearing is scheduled at this time. This is a request by GMJ2 Industries for a site plan amendment to the R1 RP Planned 1 and 2 Family Residence District to allow for residential development to have side yard setbacks of 5 feet and to allow for development of single-story ranch-style homes generally along West 7th Street between Pleasant Street and Williston Avenue. At this time, we should receive and place on file a statement of verification signed by Patty McGee stating, "I, Patty McGee, do hereby certify that a copy of the attached letter, aerial photos, site plans, drawings, were mailed to each individual on the attached list by regular mail on October 1st, 2014. Could we have a motion to receive and place this notice on file?
So moved?
Thank you, in a second.
Second.
Okay. At this time, if we could have the staff report, just go through that same process. Get the public hearing open and then move for action.
This is Graham with staff. The applicant's proposing the site plan amendment to the R1 RP Planned 1 and 2 Family Residence District, which would allow for the construction of single-story ranch homes with a side yard setback of 5 feet on each of the lots, and then it would also allow for access from Pleasant Street for Lot 1. This request could have a negative impact on the neighborhood as the area is primarily residential, consisting of mostly 1 and 1.5 or 1.5 and 2-story single-family homes, and single-story homes could be out of character with the surrounding neighborhood. This impact could be mitigated with a 1-story design that uses a steeper pitch roof, such as a 612 pitch or greater, with attic windows or dormers. This property was located in the Zone AO 100-year floodplain, as indicated by FEMA. However, on July 8th of 2014, FEMA did revise this area and did completely take this property out of the floodplain. The City Council did approve a site plan amendment for this property back in July of 2013 to allow for the development of 5 new homes on this property. That approval was subject to several conditions, including setbacks as shown on the site plan, only allowing 1.5-story and 2-story homes, and only allowing access from West 7th Street. The developer would like to amend these conditions as he would like to allow the homes to have a slightly smaller side yard setback of 5 feet instead of the 8 foot that's required in the R1 RP district. The surrounding area is zoned R2 and R3 district, which does allow 5-foot side yard setbacks. So that requested change would appear to be compatible with the surrounding area. Also, the developer would like the ability to construct single-story ranch homes on these lots. The developer does have a buyer interested in one of the lots. However, they would like to construct a single-story ranch home with an attached garage. Many of the homes in this area are of the 1.5-story or 2-story design, and that's why the original restriction was placed in the deed of dedication. However, there are some single-story homes within this general neighborhood, so removing this restriction would not appear to negatively affect the neighborhood if the home is properly designed with a roof pitch to more closely match surrounding homes in either attic, windows, or dormers. And also, the original approval did list a condition that access to the lots be gained from West 7th Street only. The developer would like to amend that condition by also allowing access from Pleasant Street for Lot 1. That's just in case the home, if the home to be constructed on that lot were to face Pleasant Street, so they could potentially gain access from Pleasant Street. At this time, staff is recommending approval for the site plan amendment to the R1 RP district, as the surrounding area is zoned R2 and R3 district, which allows the 5-foot setback, so that would conform with the surrounding area. Allowing a single-story ranch home in this area would not appear to alter the character of the neighborhood, and the request to change the accessibility to Lot 1 would not appear to have a negative impact on traffic conditions or the neighborhood. And subject to the following condition, that the single-story homes have a roof pitch of 612 or steeper, and that at least 2 windows or dormers be included in the attic level. Questions for staff?
Any questions?
This is Hackett. I was just curious. On page 17, there's a preliminary rendering sketching. Do we have any pictures of what the potential single-story ranch would look like with the suggested roofing? Just to kind of get a comparison.
I don't believe so. The applicant might be able to speak to that.
Again, Jim Ellis, JD Engineering and GM J2 Industries, 402 East 4th Street here in Waterloo. Yes, when I put together the deed of dedication for Williston Field, I have to say, you live and learn. I wrote it. I put in there, my intention was, we have both properties on Baltimore Field and Williston Field. My intention was that the 5-foot setbacks were on both properties. When we approved the site plan for Williston Field, 5-foot setbacks were approved. When we approved them for Williston Field, Baltimore Field, Williston Field, we approved, the site plan came through with a 10% side yard setback requirement. I didn't catch it. I would really like to have 5 feet, simply because that allows for bigger homes to be built. That's the first part. The second part that we're talking about is the access, and that's, we're saying on Lot 1, which is the farthest lot to the north, we're asking for access either on West 7th Street or Pleasant. The situation that I ran into with Baltimore Field was the first buyer on that lot. We actually changed the house direction because it was a bigger house. We changed the house direction to face Eureka, which worked out nicely. And we turned the garage to face Vermont, because in that deed of dedication, I said all access is off Vermont. Live and learn. Should have said either one. Typically with accesses, you put them off the lower volume traffic street. We're not asking for accesses off of Williston, because Williston is the busiest street in town in that area. We're not asking off of Allen to the back, because there's only 5 lots there and they're double frontage lots. So there's ordinances in place that say you can't have accesses both directions. So all we're doing for access is opening out that lot 5 so it can have an access off of Pleasant or West 7th. So that's the access issue. And the other one is the style of home. When I wrote the deed of dedication, we were looking at 1.5 and 2-story homes, because that is the majority of the homes that are in that area, the kind of the styles that are in that area right now. The homes were built between 1909 and 1925. They were built in an era almost before cars. There's no attached garages because they didn't have cars, I think. I wasn't alive in 1925, so I can't verify that for sure. But the 3 stipulations that we had underneath the development agreement with the city council is that all the houses would be, there's one of the ranch style homes right there. All the houses would have 3 things that we had to build. 1, a full poured concrete basement under every house. a two-car attached garage on every house, and if it's a ranch-style home, 1,100 square feet in the base floor plan, not including the basement for every house. The one that's proposed on Williston Field right now is 1,232 square feet. It is a single-family, owner-occupied home. We do have a purchase agreement right now on it. So things are going well there, but once we achieved that buyer, I knew there was a problem because I wrote the deed of dedication. So we specifically, in the deed, we were leaning towards 1.5 and 2-story homes because that's the majority of the neighborhood. We want to fit into the neighborhood. But it was never the intention to outlaw certain styles of homes. We split foyer, ranch-style homes are very nice-looking homes. In fact, I have a few pictures here, if you'd like to hand that around. I took these pictures today, and I didn't drive around town to do it. I drove outside my front door. This is the neighborhood that I live in. This is my home address is 126 Haynes Avenue. My house is the brown one. If you go through the first houses, you'll see many ranch-style homes on one side of the street. On the other side of the street is 2-story, split foyer, and 1.5 stories in one neighborhood in Waterloo. Okay, very nice neighborhood, but you have a variety of house styles in one area. I don't think that detracts from a neighborhood. I think it makes it better if we're building similar things all the way down the block and it looks like a cookie cutter. It's not as appealing for people to build. So, and also after talking with the buyers of this one, they specifically wanted to be on Williston Field. They live in this area already, so they know what the area is like. They want to be on Williston Field. They picked lot 3 right in the middle. And they also wanted a ranch-style home because they did not want to have a resale situation where they had steps involved. They wanted the family on the first floor. The way we build the houses, we build, the laundry facilities are on the first floor. We have 3 bedrooms, 1 3/4 bath on the first floor. Really, the only thing that's in the basement is the ingress-egress window, the sump pump pit, the furnace, and the water heater.
Jim,
And then all the areas
Let me
additional.
I'm sorry to cut you off there.
No,
Let me-
that's all right.
Let me just take a timeout for everything to everybody in
Sure.
the audience. What we're doing here is scrambling. We thought there'd be 2 more P and Z members here, and there aren't. And one of the P and Z members has to leave between 5:30 and no later than 6.
Okay.
We got a full agenda today. Our last meeting last month was 4 hours, and we had some controversial things. At least 2 of those controversial things are still on the agenda here now. We're going to lose a quorum. It is my point with the number of people we have here. So we're going to lose a quorum between 5:30 and 6. And so the question is, and we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 items on the agenda, and we're through 1. All right, and so I'm thinking the best way to proceed here, and I'll leave this up, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I'm sorry this happened. It's kind of a surprise to me as well. We're looking at the clock. Right before the meeting started. The only thing I can think of as I'm up here is to figure out what's not controversial on this agenda. Everybody has a right to talk, and that's the problem with these meetings is we don't want to cut anybody off. That's what these meetings are for, that everybody has a right to speak. I'm not, Jim, and I apologize to you. I
That's
didn't mean
all
to
right.
cut you off in the middle of this. Everybody's got a right to speak, but we also have to kind of get through the meeting. It's that balance. I generally would err on the side of, okay, we'll let people talk. If they've still got questions, we'll go through them until they're answered. What I'm thinking right now is if we went through this agenda, figured out who's here to talk on which agenda items. If some things are non-controversial, move the agenda around, get those out of the way, and then get back to the
Sure.
agenda and just start working through that.
That'll work. Works for me.
All right, let's finish up this.
Okay.
And then the next one is the cemetery. And then the one beyond that is the 3-unit dwelling the cemetery's been recommended for approval, as is this, Jim, what you've got right here, Williston Field. The next one after that has been recommended for denial. Usually those are somewhat controversial, so we'll go through that. But then the rest of them, we've got 6 plats, 2 vacates, 2 street namings, and an appeal. Let's get through this. Is everybody okay with that? We'll get through this, then try to figure out what we're gonna do on the rest of the
Yep.
agenda, and then go from there. Okay, sorry, Jim.
No
I'm
problem,
in.
no problem.
Sorry.
I might mention just one more thing. With the roof pitch, we can increase the roof pitch to a 612 pitch. It will cost a little bit more, but we're willing to make that adjustment in the budget so that the houses do fit into the neighborhood as best as they can. So we're willing to compromise if that's a necessity.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Mike.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Shane.
This is Graham with staff. In order to go along with your speeding up the meeting talk, there is one item on this agenda that does coincide with this one. It is under the plats,
Okay,
number
plats.
C5.
Yeah.
Is, and Jimmy acknowledged, it's also a request to revise the deed of dedication. So it's pretty much the same request as the site plan amendment. He's looking to change the deed restrictions about the access, about the single-story home. So that's basically the same thing. So if the commission wanted to act on both of them, they certainly
Gotcha.
could.
Okay.
And we are recommending approval of that as
Other than
well.
both. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else in the audience would like to speak about this request?
Good afternoon. Ron Welper, 1120 West A Street. I'm sure by now you know I'm one of the property owners around Williston Field. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history in regards to this field. I'm probably one of the longest living residents around that field. I moved there in 1976, so I've seen many uses of the field. With West Intermediate, it was a parking lot for the Sloan Wallace games. It was used for football practice for West Intermediate. And now it's used by young people wishing to play soccer. So it's a very heavily used green space. In 1993, I organized a neighborhood association, which I led as the leader till I was elected to the city council in 2001. During that time, I was approached by the Waterloo school system as to what I thought as far as building houses on Williston Field. And I said, well, it's really not up to me, it's really up to the neighborhood. And they said, well, we're a ways off from that yet, so we're not going to worry about it right now. Well, that time has come for us to now think about building houses on that field. It wasn't a very popular idea when it came up a couple years ago. But when it came to us that we could be building 1.5-story, 2-story houses similar to what we have there now, the prices of the homes are $159,900 and $195,900 for the 2-story. I said to the neighborhood that, you know, this would be one less field that the city would have to maintain or the school system would have to, you know, keep mowed, and that building homes on Williston Field would certainly help our tax base. Well, a week or so ago, they got a letter stating they wanted things to change. They want to build ranch-style homes. And the attitude of the neighborhood has changed as well. This is not what we agreed to. 2 years ago, when we talked about building homes, they weren't for it at all. But when they thought that they would at least have homes matching what we have, they went along with it. Now they're not so excited about it. The house on Williston, if you look at it, all the houses on Williston face Williston, except for this plan. It faces 7th. As far as the homes on Pleasant, all the homes on Pleasant face the opposite street except for one block. Also, the 5-foot setback. I walked the neighborhood today with a tape measure, trying to get some kind of an idea as to the setbacks of other properties, and I was coming up with from 20 to 30 feet difference in measurement between houses. This plan will have them 10 feet apart. This is not compatible with what we have. So I do see a number of our residents from the neighborhood are here. I don't know if they wish to speak or not, But I did speak to 9 people in the neighborhood, 9 different homeowners who are not in favor of this, asking that you turn down this request. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, please step forward. I think we have all the city council members here but one, right? Is it just Quentin that we're missing? Who? Yeah, I think we got everybody. Oh, please, go ahead. Just state your name and your address.
My name is Nick Fodenhauer. I'm at 1134 West 8th, and I'm one of the homeowners that has talked to Ron, and I want to thank Ron for helping us out, and not only this matter, but other ones as well. Like you said, that lot was contested by a lot of us that live there to even be built on. Again, it's being used nearly daily. There was a basketball court there, open green field. I like to take our dogs back there, run them, play them, things like that. That was butted up against the back of our house. When me and a neighbor here came to the meeting before, when it was actually changed to rezone, we were against that. But again, we were happy that it was going to raise our property value, help us out a little bit in the neighborhood. So we kind of bit our tongue. Now it seems as they agreed to a certain style of home that would bring a certain value to the neighborhood, match the neighborhood. Now they're kind of cheaping out, I feel, where they got to the point where they can build. Now they want to change that just because it's cheaper or whatever. I understand that the owner of the future house wants this style of house, but in that negotiation, it should have been detailed. It's designed for something else. I know you guys are busy, so I would say and my wife for sure here are against this as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
My name is Pat Morrissey, and I'm at 820. I live at 824 West 3rd Street in Waterloo, and I'm the Ward 3 City Council person. And I am here to speak against this, asking you to deny this request. I grew up on Randolph Street, just a few blocks away. Williston Field is near and dear to my heart. And the first, dagger going into the heart was to hear that it was going to be homes. But then, along with Councilman Welper and his neighbors, when I heard that they were going to try to at least keep the properties and the buildings on it at the conforming or a design consistent with the neighborhood, it was at least one of those hard pills to swallow. And now, when I hear this, that they want to put ranch style on there, it's another dagger. And I just hope, first of all, I would ask Jim, in the interest of neighborhood unity, if he would just withdraw his 2 requests here. That'd be the first thing. That would be the easiest thing to do, and it wouldn't demand any kind of vote. But secondly, if he chooses not to do that in the interest of neighborhood unity, I would ask you to deny this, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Longus. I live at 902 Williston. I live directly on this corner, on the corner of 7th and Williston. Of course, you've already heard from Ron, and he's done a great job with the neighbors in our area. Just want to quickly just let you know my feeling on this and my background. I was an industrial arts instructor at West High and East High. I just retired with Waterloo's Community Schools for 33 years of service. One of my main courses I taught was architectural drafting. So I do know a little bit about what we're looking at here. Initially, when we got information on the style of homes, I was very excited. I mean, I wasn't excited that we were losing a green space, which everybody wants. I've lived at 902 Williston for 24 years, so I've enjoyed that green space for some time. But in the interest of development, I certainly understood what had to happen or what was being planned. We were sent information, drawings, whatnot, on the different types of homes that were proposed, and they looked really good. We just received this a week or so ago on the change to the ranch-style type home and the 5-foot setback. Just quickly, I don't know how many of you work with measurement very often, but to give you an idea how far 10 feet is, a 5-foot setback, basically each one of these panels is roughly 3 feet. So if that's the wall, your neighbor's house is going to be right here, give or take a few inches. Now that's very close. That is very close. And in lot 3, if you'll look at that drawing, which is the house or the lot that has been sold, that actually puts their bathroom windows 10 feet across from each other and bedroom walls 10 feet across from each other. Now, I don't know if you folks have children or have been around children or young adults, but that's pretty close. Not to mention lawnmowers and things of that nature as well. I am not against the idea of homes being put there, but I am against the ranch-style home. I have a garage on my property that is 24 feet by 32 feet, which is only 4 feet shallower and 10 feet narrower than the houses proposed here. I park 3 cars in there, and that's not enough space. So what I'm saying is, I don't want 4-car garages across the street from me. One of the drawings that was sent to us is this one, which I have not seen up here, that shows the homes with the dormers on there. And that particular plan has a single bedroom on the main floor and 2 bedrooms up. I think that's a great idea. If we have to make a compromise and we have to go to this plan, I would not be against that plan. Because to me, it fits into the neighborhood much better. True, there are literally just a few single-story homes in our area, very few, and I think it's like 3. But all the houses that are basically around it are 1.5 and 2-story homes. So if we have to make a compromise and go this route, I could live with that. But the 5-foot setback, just another thought on my teacher brain, is if we can offset garages and push that 2-car garage up to the front, slide the house back, keep that setback at least at whatever the minimum is in the city, and I believe it's 8 feet, maybe even 10, so that at least the side yard would be somewhat reasonable instead of literally building one on top of another. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca Mitchell, 1130 West 8th Street, and I just want to echo what's been said here. I don't want to sit here all day and not, speak up a little bit, but I would just echo, we were told it would be one way, it's now being switched to another thing, and I understand maybe he made a mistake, but make your mistake on another project, fix your errors on another project, live and learn. So, thank you.
Thank you. And the applicant's coming back up.
All right, Jim Ellis, 126 Haynes Avenue again. Green space, let's recognize this as a green space. The issue on the table today is not green space. The decision was made 1.5 years ago to change this from green space to housing. It was the city council's decision to do so, and that's not even on the table today, okay? If the decision is to not allow single-family homes, that's okay. We will still promote 1.5-story and 2-story homes on the site. Will it take longer to build? Probably. But we're going to build homes on the site, even if the ranch style. This is the book that governs what you guys do. Nowhere underneath R1, RP does it state a housing style that cannot be allowed in an R1, RP area. Okay? Style is not brought up in the zoning ordinance. And as I showed you in those files there, or those pictures, multiple styles in a neighborhood is a good thing. You don't want the houses to look all the same. We are willing to make a compromise to raise the roof pitch, but you have to understand the field is flat, and if you can visualize this, the houses have a large 30-foot setback from the front property line, which is almost 15 feet back from the back of curb. The houses are going to be setting almost 45 feet back from the curb, and to get a proper slope and a driveway to the road, your house is going to set 3 feet higher than the existing field right now. Add another 8-foot wall to that, you're up 11 feet. Add a 612 pitch on a 28-foot wide home, or a 24-foot wide, excuse me, home. No, 28. On a 28-foot wide home with a 612 pitch, you're going to add another 7 feet to the house. These houses, by the time you hit the roof pitch, is going to be 18 feet above grade, which is going to be very close, if not higher than, the houses that are next to the field. So we're willing to make the compromise. It was never the intention to outlaw styles of homes on the lots. And nowhere in the zoning ordinance does it outlaw styles of homes on lots. It was always intended that we would promote story and a half and promote two-story, and we continue to do so with every buyer that we talk to. In this situation, in this instance, they are requesting a ranch-style home. It's the exact same style home that we're building on Baltimore Field. Okay? We're building them 6 blocks away. The value of this house is $154,000. The highest valued house in this neighborhood is 98, and the lowest is 30. We almost double the value of home in this neighborhood with this house. And the maximum taxes paid in this neighborhood right now is approximately $1,800 a year. Starting taxes on this house is $2,800 a year. Okay, value-wise, it's never been our intention to draw the neighborhood down. It's always been to pick the neighborhood up. When we gained ownership of the field, the first thing we did is we took the fence down that was rusty and looked in bad shape. We took the weeds out along Williston Field. We pick up the trash every week, and we mow the field every week like clockwork. Okay? Our goal, and we took the basketball court out. Our goal is to raise the neighborhood, not draw it down. I don't feel that a ranch-style house is going to draw down the neighborhood. Now, is it going to be what we're going to promote through all 5 lots? No. We're still promoting story and a half. We're still promoting two-story. We design all 4 types of houses. Address the 5-foot setback issue real quick. Those pictures that you show right there are houses that are built with 5-foot setbacks. The houses on Baltimore Field are built with 5-foot setbacks. Is it narrow between the houses? Yep, it's hard to get a vehicle between a house with it's only a 5-foot setback. However, in this case, we don't have that problem because Allen Street is behind. If you need to get a vehicle to the back side, it's a 2-frontage lot. So we're trying to compromise. We're willing to increase the cost of the houses and raise the roof pitches. The houses that are going to be built are almost twice the square footage of what's out there today.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Now, tell you what, that's everybody on this item that wishes to speak? Okay. Let's close the public hearing, and then we'll go back to take action on this. In the meantime, we've been scrambling for other P&Z members. Do we have somebody coming? Okay, gotcha. All right, we're in good shape then. Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Public hearing? Yeah, thank you. Second. Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion carried. Then we're on to basically take action on this. The recommendation is to approve this, and just to clarify, I think that the deed of dedication has already been approved, and that's where the restrictions come from, correct, on the 1-story, 1.5-story, or 2-story? So
This
it's
is
not
Schrader
really
with
a zoning
staff. There's,
question.
there
It's the
is,
deed
it's
of
restrictions and,
dedication.
but it's actually both. Because it's zoned R1 RP, it was site plan
Oh,
specific, and there were
okay. I see.
conditions placed on the approval that talked about the height of homes, and setbacks were as shown on the approved site plan. So we need to approve, if the
That's
applicant's
why it's
request
both.
is to be approved,
Okay.
it needs to be both the site plan amendment and the changes to the deed of dedication.
Okay. Thank you. And so discussion. Or entertain a motion.
I know, this is Tackett. I lived with less than a 10-foot distance. I'm from an 8 million member county, so I know how close homes can be, and I understand Jim's, desire to build homes, and I can appreciate that. But I think we brought this up many times in the commission, that we have to take consideration who has been there and who has made an investment and has lived in the neighborhood. And I think it's a tough balance, because we understand the green space is gone, and from what I understand, that's not an issue. What's an issue here is what was presented was a 1.5 and 2-story, and that was a good faith. We came in, and to me, to change one home for one buyer, I'm thinking perhaps this may not be what the buyer, is. If he doesn't want a 1.5, 2-story, this may perhaps not be the neighborhood. But to keep changing, for one, I feel like at the sacrifice of everyone who has invested time in there, I would have trouble with that. And if that's a deed of dedication, I'm very hesitant to move forward. Not that I don't want development, because I think infill is good, but I think to respect the citizens that have lived there and invested. We've brought that before the commission many times, and we have taken that into strong consideration, because it is a community. And I'll be honest, on a personal level, it's why I like living in Iowa. I feel like here it's community. It's not about putting a tract homes. And there is a huge difference between having all single and all ranch. Now, I lived originally where they would have 1, 2, 3 models. So I know what a tract home area is like. My brother's an architect. So there is a huge difference between having all the same style and all cookie cutter. And I think if we can somehow work with the neighborhood, I think I would feel better with that.
I would agree with Tackett that the consensus was built around 1.5 and 2-story homes, and I don't see a consensus for ranch, and so my vote's going to be to oppose the motion.
Tell you what, you want to leave a motion on the table, and then we'll take it
Yeah,
from
it's
there?
easier if I do oppose, or I'll make a motion.
I would say make a motion to approve.
Oh,
and then
okay.
If
And then
that's,
we'll-
if it
that's
doesn't
yea or
matter,
nay.
make a
Okay.
motion to approve, and then voting no would be.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan amendment
Okay. And it's.
and the deed of dedication.
And deed of dedication.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would take care of 2. Number C5. Get that second on the table.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. So the motion is to approve it. A vote no is a vote to deny. Any further discussion or questions? Okay.
I have one question. Is the deed of dedication, was that already pre-approved, though? The one
It's already
that's on there
approved,
is what the
and there's already an
council's already
existing deed of
approved.
dedication
So
that's
this
there.
new one was to, okay.
Just to
Right.
amend that, it would just go back to
Okay.
the way it was. So should we go roll call? And, okay, and again, a no vote is to deny. So, start, Paul?
No.
Tackett?
No.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry, no. You
It's
do
okay.
that. Please.
Just we're going in the same order I was going.
Yes,
That's
please,
right.
go ahead, you go.
Thornsberry,
No.
Buckles,
No.
Young.
No. Okay, got it. Okay, so the motion was denied. Okay, and that was for and the deed of dedication, so that's C5. Okay, the next item we've got on our agenda is the Bosnian Islamic Association for a special permit for the cemetery. And then we've got the single-family home. What we've been trying to do is scramble commission members to get here, and we may have one who can be here for an hour.
Yeah, she's on her way.
And she's on her way now. So why don't we still, though, you guys okay just if we flip the agenda to see if there's anything not controversial, and then we'll go to the cemetery? And just try to get done what we can. Okay. Now, I asked Noel Anderson, so I think the cemetery, we might have some questions on. The 532 Independence, that was recommended for denial. I know the Robin Hood Enterprises, there'll be some discussion on that, that's C1 and C2. There's a request for preliminary plat for the Southport Third Edition, which is industrial by the airport. Is anybody here that would like to speak on that? Is the applicant here, anybody here to talk about that? Okay, is anybody here that would like to talk about that from the audience? Okay, feel free to say yes. Okay, if it's okay, we go ahead with that one.
Final plat, so you could do
And
it together.
C4 is the final plat as well, and that's the Southport Third Edition near the airport.
So we're doing C3, C4?
C3 and C3 and C4 at this time. Okay. We need to change the agenda? Nah, okay. All right, I'll go through that. That's C3, which is request by JDE Engineering. This is,
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. We're plotting 11 more lots over in that area.
Tell me
This is
what
where
page number is
we're
it?
on 69
Thank you.
is the first, and then, I'm sorry.
This is where
No,
Geraldine
it is-
Road,
it is
just west of
69,
Advanced
excuse me.
Systems, was
Correct.
built off of. This is the third phase of the Geraldine Road development. We've developed, I think, about 12 other lots in that area, good industrial development area. We're using RISE funding from the state of Iowa. This is located within the airport tip district. The plat meets all requirements for final and preliminary plat documents.
All right, thank you. And so, just for the audience's sake, it's generally along Highway 218. Does anybody have any questions about this or concerns? Okay. Seeing none, then the request, the recommendation is for approval. It doesn't look like there are any commissions listed. I'm looking on page 71 of our board packet. And that is for the preliminary and the final?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Thornsberry. I move that we approve the request for the preliminary and final plat of Southport Third Edition.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The chair votes aye, motion carried. All right. Yeah, we got C6. This is for Audubon Heights 4th edition. It's
Tell me what the
C6 in our board packet. Is the applicant here for this? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to discuss this? Okay, let's move on to that. That is on page 93. This is recommended for approval, and if we could start with maybe the staff report on this, I'll go through that.
This is Miller with staff. The request would create 14 lots for residential development ranging in size from 13,736 square feet to 34,150 square feet. The site is currently zoned R1 residential district and has been since 1979. The lot would be required to meet residential standards for drainage, and the preliminary, the final plat shows a smaller portion of Tract E, or shows a smaller portion known as Tract D, or shown as Tract D, being reserved for drainage and detention purposes. The 14 lots are not within the floodplain, however, Tract E is within the 100-year floodplain. The final plat consists of 14 lots containing approximately 6.47 acres of land. Streets shown as Tracts A through C will be dedicated to the city for street use upon approval of the final plats. Access to future development is shown through Tracts B and C, labeled as Waxwing Way and Partridge Lane. The plat does meet all requirements according to the subdivision ordinance, and therefore staff recommends that the request for final plat of Audubon Heights 4th edition be approved for the following reasons. The plat is in accordance with the subdivision ordinance, and the new addition can be served by by the extension of existing utilities. The plat is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and future land use map, which classify this area as residential, and the plat will create additional infill development within the primary growth area.
Okay, any questions for staff? And the applicant is here. Anybody in the audience would like to address this? Okay, the only question I had, this looks like, this isn't maybe a question for staff or when they pull the map up. Eventually, this would connect Audubon Drive, it looks like, and Falcon Ridge with the tie-in street, but waxing, it's just, that won't be at this time, correct? Okay.
This is Schrader with staff. That is correct. That'll be a future phase. If you remember, the preliminary plat, which came before us a few months back, showed the layout of the whole area and showed Partridge Lane extending, from where it is currently at the northeast corner of this area down to where they're proposing the stub street that will connect to the extension of Falcon Ridge. And then, yes, in the next phase, Audubon would also extend through, connecting into the future extension of Partridge Lane and Waxwing Lane connecting into that. So it's very interconnected.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, any further questions or discussion? Okay, if there's nobody in the audience, I would entertain a motion on this item that's on page 95.
This is Tackett. I move that we approve the request for the final plat of Audubon Heights, 4th edition, for the reasons given.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. I think what's next, why don't we move to the, next on our agenda is a vacate. This is from David and Beth Delagardelle for 472 Progress Avenue. The Delagardelle's here? Okay. And is there anybody in the audience that would like to address this matter too? Okay. Why don't we, everybody okay, we'll just go with that and kind of work our way. I think these last few are, as I understand, not controversial. So, I mean, that's okay with everybody. We'll go with that. This is D1. It's a vacate request that begins on page...
Sandera staff, applicant is requesting to vacate
109.
that 30-foot platted building line located parallel to the south lot line of 472 Progress. Site question is zoned R1, 1 and 2 family residence district. A new structure could be built with a setback of half the required front yard, which in this case would be 15 feet, as this property is zoned R1, and the minimum front yard setback is 30 feet. Since they are proposing a 10-foot setback, a variance was needed to encroach past that 15-foot setback, which they got approved in August of this year. However, the 30-foot building line would still be enforced as the most restrictive applies. It would not appear that vacating this line would have a negative impact upon the surrounding area. Staff is recommending approval of the request to vacate the 30-foot platted building line at 472 Progress, as it would not appear to have a negative impact upon the surrounding area, and the request would not appear to have a negative impact upon pedestrian and traffic conditions within the surrounding area.
Any questions for staff? Okay, anybody in the audience would like to address this? I think the owner's here if there are questions. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this item. It's and that starts on page 110.
This is all. I'll make a motion to request for the approval of the request to vacate.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve the vacate, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. Let's next move on to D2. This is a request by Marcus Pratt to vacate a portion of Marigold Drive south of Afton Drive. And this begins on page 119 of our board packets. Staff report with Tim and Derek.
Applicant is requesting to vacate 60 by 197 foot portion of right-of-way of Marigold Drive south of its intersection with Afton Drive. The applicant, Marcus Pratt, has requested to retain the east half of the right-of-way that abuts the property he owns at 3410 Marigold Drive, which is currently a house that is under construction. The Bosnian Islamic Association owns the property to the west of the right-of-way, as requested to retain the western portion of the right-of-way that abuts their property. Applicant did provide a letter to the engineering department agreeing that he will extend Marigold Drive from Afton approximately 16 feet southeastward and install two 16-foot wide driveways on the opposite side of the street. Applicant also indicated that sidewalk would be extended along either side and be built to city specifications. However, only extending Marigold Drive by 16 feet is not long enough to meet the requirements for a turnaround. Another option would be to vacate Marigold Drive south of Afton and curve Afton Drive into existing Marigold Drive and install new curb and gutter on the south side of the curve and construct a new driveway entrance at the curve to serve both the applicant's property and the Bosnian Islamic Association property. Staff feels this would be the best alternative to this situation. The portion of Marigold south of Afton Drive is a dead-end stub that previously had right-of-way that extended farther to the south, connecting into Memory Lane. However, this right-of-way was eliminated when the entire plat of that area was vacated, and there are no plans to make a public road connection through this area in the future. Staff recommends approval of this request to vacate, as the request would not appear to have a negative impact upon the surrounding area. The request would not appear to have a negative impact upon pedestrian and traffic conditions within the area, and with the following conditions: that before reconstruction of the road begins, the applicant submits in writing with the details, materials, and contractors involved in the reconstruction of the roadway and obtain all necessary permits. That the applicant reconfigures the intersection of Marigold and Afton Drive by properly curving the two streets into one another. That each adjoining property owner provides an access easement for the benefit of the other adjoining property over the portion that is conveyed to them, and for retain an easement over, under, and upon the area requested to be vacated.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, anybody in the audience would like to address this? Just so I'm clear, the relation with the request for the cemetery, is this a coincidence, or is this part of the same?
I would essentially say coincidence, although it is
Okay.
where that they are going to pull their
understand.
primary access from.
Okay, got it,
And so
okay.
just so it was clear, there is sanitary sewer that runs through there now, so that's why an easement needs to be retained, and we had initially omitted that in the list of conditions, but Tim added that one when he read.
Okay, so number 4 would be retaining,
Utility easement over, under, and upon.
okay.
Kirk Ashleman with Kess and Associates. That work. I am a representative with the Bosnian Association. We got several members here this night. My only question was, you're going to maintain an easement over the full 60 feet? Or are we going to reduce it to 20 feet either side as engineering requested?
Would that affect your use? of
Not
it?
really, but the other question I had was putting sidewalk on either side when there isn't any other sidewalk out there.
Right, well, if it's, this is Schrader with staff, if it's vacated, then there would be no requirement for sidewalk. When it was a public
Okay.
street, that was the discussion, that when they
Okay.
were gonna extend it 16 feet, that they would also extend sidewalk in that 16 feet. As for the vacate of the easements, I guess I'm not sure. Engineering might have to take a closer look at that to determine what I don't know for sure if the sanitary sewer is the only utility in there, or if there are any other existing utilities that would require easement over the whole thing, or if it could be
Okay.
narrowed. We'll look at that.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, discussion? If not, I entertain a motion on this.
Buckles, I move that we approve the request to vacate portion of Marigold Drive located south of the intersection of Afton Drive, subject to the conditions mentioned.
Okay, and that's 1 through 4, with the 4th being the retainage of the utility easement over, under, and upon the area.
Yes.
correct? Okay, great, thanks. And a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. The next item, just as we're going through the agenda here, is exhibit on page 129. It is the first of two street namings. This is E1, and it's a request by the City of Waterloo to rename rename a street that was approved at a meeting a couple months ago, at essentially Kimball and Ridgeway, to Rapid Square. It's on page 129 of our board packet. I don't know, do we need maybe a
This is Anderson with
abridged
staff. You can see
version
on
of this?
page 134 that the engineering department recommends approval of the street naming.
Okay. And this is the area that was approved. It's the complex just south of the Covenant Cancer Treatment Center. Was it 2 meetings ago?
Yeah.
That we approved that? Okay. I think high development, maybe? Is that right?
Yes.
From Cedar Rapids, okay. Just to rename their street near Edgemont happened. I tell you what, any questions for staff? If not, I would entertain a motion to rename the streets to Rapid Square.
I'd recommend, I'd make a motion to approve renaming the street.
Okay,
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all of those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. Yeah, okay, so the next one's with Robin Hood Enterprises, and this is for renaming Shelley Drive. All right, we've got an appeal. That's the last item on our agenda for street parking. And now I don't know if we're getting into things that people are here to talk about. Is the last one pretty? Okay. All right, let's try to go with the appeal that's on the last one. This is Exhibit F1. It's the last item in our board packet. It begins on page
140.
140.
This is Miller with staff. The applicants are asking to allow parking in the city right-of-way between the street and the property line at 323 LaPorte Road along Paper Mill Street. Allowing parking on city-owned right-of-way could have a negative impact on traffic conditions, making it so vehicles would have to back out onto the street when leaving. Vehicles would have to back onto Paper Mill Street, which appears to be a low-traffic street and approximately 2 blocks long. The property in question is zoned M1 Light Industrial District. The property is located within the Zone X 500 year floodplain. The area is served by existing utilities, and there are no utilities within the right-of-way in question. There is a city ordinance that states that parking is not permitted in the city right-of-way between the curb and sidewalk or property line. Similar requests have been heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission, such as in June of 2012 at the northwest corner of Jefferson and West 12th Street, where parking was approved for in city-owned right-of-way due to street being a low-traffic street and no public utilities were located in that area in question. There is also a sufficient amount of room for vehicles to park in the area requested. There is approximately 18 feet of right-of-way from the property line to Paper Mill Street. Aerial photos show the vehicles to be close to Paper Mill Street, but do not overhang onto the road right-of-way, or onto the roadway. Approximately 13 parking stalls would be along the right-of-way, and the applicant has indicated that stalls would be utilized by customers, as there is currently no location for customers to park in the area. Staff would note that code enforcement has expressed concerns towards the street request, or towards the request. They have received many complaints, not only from the general public, but also from council members as well. Larry Smith with code enforcement stated that they make many calls a year to this area of town due to complaints, and stated that code enforcement has been sent to this particular location on numerous occasions. Therefore, staff recommends that the request for appeal to the city code requirement prohibiting vehicles from parking on the street right-of-way located between Paper Mill Street and 323 LaPorte Road be approved for the following reasons. The street in question is a low-traffic street, Paper Mill Street being 2 blocks long. Parking in the right-of-way would provide a sufficient amount of space for vehicles to park without overhanging into the street, even though the aerial photos indicate the cars to be very close to the roadway. Subject to the following conditions, the city will have the right to utilize the right-of-way for widening the roadway or installing traffic control devices, the property owner will have no right to claim damages or prevent the city from removing the parking and utilizing the right-of-way for public purposes.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, anybody in the audience would like to address this? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion, and the recommended motion is on page 142.
Mrs. Thornsberry, I move that we approve the request for an appeal of the city code to allow parking on the street right-of-way located between Paper Mill Street and 323 LaPorte Road, with subject to the following condition: that the city will have the right to utilize the right-of-way for widening the road or installing traffic control devices. The property owner will have no right to claim damages or prevent the city from removing the parking and utilizing the right-of-way for public purposes.
Thank you. It's been moved. and-
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Obviously, I would have missed part of what was going on, but I've heard from some city code enforcement people about the parking issue. Have the city employees expressed, I mean, I know the technical review is you're saying approve it, but has anyone else from the city specifically talked about this?
This is Schrader with staff. Yes, the Code Enforcement Division has expressed concern with granting exceptions to allowing parking in the public right-of-way for concerns on enforcement of tracking which ones have been approved and which ones haven't, and then issues of, questions on if they are issuing a notice of violation on a property for someone that's parking in there, and they say, well, they're doing it here, and that one was approved. But the staff recommendation is for approval based on there is a process. They can be looked at on a case-by-case basis and looked at in unique situations, which we feel all of the ones that have been approved thus far have been, and this request is similar to those others that have been approved, that you're generally dealing with a dead-end street and or a very low-volume street, and this one is both. It's a paper mill dead ends. To the east there, it's a very low-volume street. It's not a typical I think it's seal code. I don't know that for sure, but it's not a typical construction street. So it's very similar to with the other requests that have been approved. So we felt it met the criteria that we've generally been using to review these.
Okay, I just wanted to check because I've gotten some calls on this one.
Thank you. And Lee, I should know, thank you for being here. No, you weren't able to come initially, but thank you for scrambling to get here, so, okay. Any further questions?
I know this is Tackett. I know we went through this one before, so nothing's basically changed. Because I know there was a reason why
It
we
surprised
denied
me,
this
yeah,
one,
yeah.
yeah. Because there were some
Mhm.
reasons why this one we did feel we weren't comfortable. So
I
I
think it
just,
was
maybe we get
tabled,
it.
right? Yeah.
It was
Oh, was it
originally
tabled?
tabled. There was
Okay.
originally another portion along LaPorte Road that they were requesting as well. They pulled that for now just to go along with the Paper Mill Street
Okay.
portion.
Yeah, because I know that is a very low traffic, and I know we don't want to set precedents, but I know I've been there, it's not that
Mhm.
much going on there, and if we feel it's safe, we're not worried about backing in.
Mhm.
I was just trying to remember that, why it was
Yeah.
up here
Yep.
before and came back, so it was tabled. Okay.
Yep. Okay, any further questions? If not, there's the motion to approve, subject to the condition noted. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. All right, so we're back to what I think is we've got 3 items left. We've got the cemetery, we've got the request for a special permit for a 3-family dwelling, 532 Independence Avenue, and then we have Nottingham 3rd Edition. And so I will recuse myself on Nottingham 3rd Edition, and I know we're gonna have discussion about that. We had a lot of discussion last time it was tabled. Just to confirm, if I'm sorry, abstain from voting,
We still have
we still have a quorum and can still vote on that. Otherwise, we'd have to flip that around. But are you okay for staying? What I thought is we'll just move through the next 3 in order, which is a cemetery, and then,
I got probably going to leave just before 6.
okay.
What's quorum, 4 or 5?
What I'm wondering is, do we want to go Nottingham third? Who here is to speak on Nottingham third? I know. Okay. Just go, okay, then we'll go back to B1. Who's here on the cemetery? Okay. That's the next one on our agenda. Why don't we go back to that one? And then, bear with us as we get through this. So, okay, so this takes us to B1, which is in our board packet, on page 21. And this is for a special permit. It's to allow for the establishment of a new cemetery. And for this, the staff report comes from
Graham with staff. The applicant's proposing a special permit in order to establish a new cemetery on the property, which is part of a new development on that property, which will also include a new mosque, soccer field, playground, and several potential residential lots. I guess this is a long staff report, but this was on the agenda last month, if you remember, and the commission tabled it for several reasons. I believe one, wanted to gather some information. There were some concerns about the burial process and some potential groundwater concerns, groundwater contamination concerns. There was that issue, and then I believe trying to think what one of the other issues were.
Something about the road.
Yeah, access point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the access point, and then also whether any state approvals. I think the state approval process kind of was questioned too by the commission at last month's meeting. So the applicants here, they do have some representatives, I think, that can better explain some of those questions that the commission had last month. The access issue, as you saw on that other agenda item with the vacating of the road, I think will solve some of the access issues with that vacate of Marigold. They will have that access off of there and have a driveway there, so that should clear up the access issue. So at this time, then, staff is recommending approval of the special permit request, as it would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding area, as it would be utilizing an existing vacant parcel, and the request would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and then subject to the following conditions: one, that the final site plan meet all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., but not limited to, including but not limited to parking, drainage, landscaping, except as approved by any variances. And two, that a minimum 6-foot tall fence is constructed along the west and south borders of the cemetery to screen the adjacent mobile home park. One other small addition: the site plan it's in your packet. They did update it a little bit. They did move it further away from the property line. Before, I think it was only 20 feet from the south and west property line. They have updated that to move it, I think, 35 feet from the south property line and 50 feet from the west. So they are moving it further away from the mobile home park to the south and west, and they are still proposing to put the fence around those two sides, though. Any questions for
Okay,
staff?
Yeah, any questions for staff? So, all right, the question, is the applicant here, because I had one, talked to somebody on the question on the state regulations, and what I understood was that there really aren't state regulations, and it's up to the city on the burial and vault, is that?
No, the DNR's office regulates, or the state regulates, and I think the applicant can address that. I know
Got it, okay.
he had
okay.
been in talks with staff about already talking with the state about it,
Got
so
okay.
they can clarify that.
Thank you. All right, and sounds like the applicant's here, anybody, yeah, please come forward.
Kirk Eschliman with Kess and Associates. We're the ones that laid out the drawings you're looking at. Yes, we moved what I would refer to as the northwesterly line of the cemetery has been moved. We initially in the design, used the building setback of 20 feet for where the fence was. And then actually had a gap of almost 10 feet between the fence and the first plots. The new design takes into account some of the grading around the site, and we've moved it to 35 feet from the northwesterly side and from the southerly side, around there where Memory Lane actually dead ends. That's been moved to 50 feet away, and then that's where the fence is, and we're inside of that before we get to the plots. We have had issues with various agencies pointing fingers different directions to tell us who we need to talk to about a permit for the cemetery. I have determined from one of the other cemeteries in the area that groundwater's not a concern with the state permit. So we do have 4 members from the mosque here. You got other pertinent questions?
Okay, and I guess if this special permit is approved, this is more for staff. This goes to Board of Adjustment, okay. Is there time to confirm that or what we need with the, I guess, the permit from the legal side for that? Would that be at our next meeting? Or, I mean, at their meeting later this month?
This is Schrader with staff. We certainly can look at this further. Before the site plan amendment had gone to city council a month or 2 back, I don't remember exactly when that was, that question was raised there, and I looked into that, and I didn't recognize the state agency that actually has authority over cemeteries. It's a agency name I didn't really recognize, but it is a state agency that has oversight. It's my understanding that there is a permit required, but as to what kind of standards or criteria they have for getting that permit, I am not aware, and I didn't see anything on the state's website that really
Okay.
provided much
And
information on that.
I just kind of asked around. The reason I'm asking, I'm on the board of the, volunteer board for the Waterloo Cemetery. And so I've had some there, and I don't know actually who it is either. I think the Iowa Insurance Division
I think
does
that's right.
regulate some of the money that you pay because you're paying really into a trust
That's
fund,
correct.
that sort of thing.
The
But
oversight board is more concerned with the financial viability of the agency than it is anything else.
Yeah, and so, and I didn't have any, please understand, I didn't have any concern on this. They're opposed to it, but what I couldn't find the answer to, is there somebody at the state that regulates what the regulations are? I mean, things that deal with burials and that sort of thing. The understanding I got was that it's up to the city to do it. And so the reason I'm asking this is not, again, because I'm opposed to it, but more just figuring out what it is, or, what the rules are going forward once it's approved. So that's why I'm asking here. I don't know if there's a legal opinion or something like that, or if we just.
I checked
Right.
with several of the funeral homes in town, and they told me it's up to their own cemetery, whether they will require vaults or whatever.
Okay.
And so that it's, I was told it was through the Board of Health at the state level.
Okay.
And you're right about the insurance, for the financial viability of the organization, but the Board of Health is the one that governs.
Okay, and so that'd be at county level or state? That-
You're right, county at one point,
Okay.
and it got very convoluted.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I don't know, but it
It's a
was really
strange thing to ask
definitive.
about, too.
It
Talking
is,
about
but
vaults
it was
and
very
caskets.
clear that it was up to the particular cemetery whether
Okay.
vaults were
Gotcha.
required.
And that's just where the questions are now, I think, just in.
So there's no permits, we don't have anything
don't know.
concrete right
Yeah.
now. I had a question about the sanitary sewer that runs within the property,
That's
that goes
correct.
underneath that. Is that something that's been addressed? It looks like that it is being used by some of the residential homes around in that area.
There's actually public sanitary that runs into this system, passes through the property and goes back into a public system on the other side. So this was reviewed at the tech review meeting, and that's where why I brought up the 20 feet on either side, because that was the number tossed out at that time, was to rededicate 20 foot of easement. Now, in one case, you can see there's a sanitary sewer line that was to go to a cul-de-sac that actually heads towards the proposed cemetery. And we'd be looking at, as part of that negotiation, to actually abandon that line and have it cut off. And then in the process way, my understanding was the line has been in the notations we got on in the plat book was that it had been certified by an engineer and had been videotaped prior to the purchase, and so the only thing that was needed was to give the city the easement to that property.
Any further questions for the applicant?
So
Any
our,
que-
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Our permits, so just so I'm clear, 'cause it seems like there's a lot of things we're not sure about. On the permits, is there something moving forward to find out about insurance?
We're still
or
in the
foment,
process trying to
stuff like-
track that all down, and like you say, we finally figured out this last week that it was someplace we haven't even been looking. I thought it was within Iowa DNR, and it's not, so now that we've got that narrowed down, I'm actually have acquired some assistance from another cemetery, so this is the first time I've ever started one. I've done a lot of additions and I've laid out a lot of cemeteries, but they all already had their permits when I got involved, so it was just laying out some more lots, but
I guess my other concern is it's the first time that I've run into, either historically or where you build a cemetery first and then the religious building later. Usually the cemeteries accommodate the parishioners just historically, you put in the building first, and then historically, like throughout the country, you have the cemeteries that are fenced in for the area, or I've had where I'm from where they have different groups, religious with certain requirements to be respectful to the religion. That's all kind of taken in advance, but this time we're requesting a cemetery first, but from what I understand last month, there's no permanent plans right now in the works for the mosque. So I'm just kind of wondering why the cemetery first, and is that going to be a problem if they go forward? Just in fairness to them, I guess seemed like there's a lot of up in the air with this, and
currently
just-
they don't have anywhere to go for a cemetery.
Okay.
Now, they do have a mosque in the downtown area, and I don't, trying to remember the address. I think it's over on Second. Pardon? Yeah, West Second Street is where the mosque is now, and that's all residential right around them, so there just isn't any room to have a cemetery.
Isn't that a residential? I guess because I always research everything, make sure I'm, getting information. I could not find anything on file except for the Secretary of State's office as far as a location or website or any information. I was just wondering, when they said there was a mosque, is it in a building? Is it
Yes.
separate from the one then? Okay,
They have an existing mosque now.
okay.
The only reason they're looking at this financially, one, that there is a need for this. They don't need to build a brand-new mosque at this point in time, and it'll give them some time frame to develop, see how far their money's gonna go towards building a new mosque and then transferring the current structure.
So the question here is our approval of a special permit, and then the next step will be the Board of Adjustments, and then the applicant will get their state permit to operate a cemetery. Is that the sequence?
But I don't know that there is the state permit, or what the state permit is. What I was thinking to do is if it was approved, to put another condition on there, subject to confirmation of the regulations and permitting required.
That's a good,
And just basically leave it up to that, and that would give you some time.
At
to
least
go
we'd be
through the-
moving ahead at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
exactly.
Because I had the same questions, and again, I'm not opposed to it, just kind of curious as to what they are. Yeah.
What was the
What's
word
required?
you used, Mike?
I had, subject to, number 3 was confirmation of the regulations and permitting required. Feel free to edit that, or it's not a work of art. Any further questions or discussion? Okay. Kirk, thank you for your time. I guess if there's anybody else in the audience who would like to address this? If not, would entertain a motion on this item. I'm back to page 24. You can report back.
Mrs. Thornsberry, I move that we approve the request for a special permit to allow for the establishment of a cemetery to be approved, subject to the following conditions. One, that the site plan meets all applicable city codes regulations, including not limited to parking, drainage, landscaping, except as approved by variance. Two, that a minimum of a 6-foot solid fence be constructed along the west and south borders of the cemetery to screen the adjacent mobile home park. And three, confirmation of all regulations and permits required before proceeding.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? If not, then all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. Looks like, let's see, 5-1. So that takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is on page 32. This is a request for a special permit to allow for the legalization of a single-family home converted into a 3-unit dwelling at 532 Independence Avenue. Staff report.
This is Miller with staff. The applicant is requesting a special permit to legalize the illegal conversion of a single-family dwelling into a 3-unit dwelling. It would appear the request could have a negative impact on the neighborhood as the request does not meet density requirements per family for the lot and the neighborhood is primarily consist of single-family dwellings. The applicant has indicated that there is parking along the rear and side of home. The zoning ordinance states that the residents or any residents with 3 or more units must have a hard surface parking area and also 2 parking spaces per unit. This property would require 6 off-street parking spaces and appears to have sufficient amount of space along the rear and side of home to allow for 6 parking spaces. As of Monday, the applicant has actually indicated that they would hard surface the parking area to meet parking requirements. The property in question is not located within a flood hazard area. The applicant will be asking for a variance from the Board of Adjustment to the minimum lot width, minimum lot area per family, and minimum lot area. Records indicate that the home has been a single-family home since prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance in 1969. Staff does not have any evidence of when the home was converted from a single-family dwelling to a 3-plex. But according to the permits with the City Building Inspections Department, the property appears to have been a 3-plex as far back as 1998. The applicant has indicated that all units have their own access and do not share any common areas within the dwelling, such as bathrooms, kitchens, or living spaces. The area is primarily single-family dwellings, and city staff and the City of Waterloo as a whole have long been concerned with the negative effects that multifamily conversions are having on our neighborhoods and community. The city has recently added wording to the latest amendment to the zoning ordinance that requires all multifamily conversions to apply for a special permit through the Board of Adjustment prior to conversion. This would allow staff to review the request to ensure that all conversions would meet the current minimum requirements such as lot width, lot size, parking, and layout of the proposed conversion. Therefore, staff recommends that the request for a special permit to allow the legalization of the conversion of a single-family home to a 3-family home located at 532 Independence Avenue be denied for the following reasons. The property does not meet numerous density requirements to allow for a 3-family conversion. The request could set a precedent for future requests in the area, and the city sees high-density multifamily conversions as potentially having a negative impact on the lower density neighborhoods within the city. And I would also like to note that we did receive a letter from Habitat for Humanity this afternoon, and they are also in opposition of the request. Yep.
Any questions for staff? Thank you. And anybody from the audience would like to address this? Yeah, please step forward. Just state your name and your address.
My name is Lorraine Andrade, and I live at 1503 Essex Drive in Waterloo. we bought this property in 2000, and we bought it as a 3-unit. We have no idea who converted it or when. I have gone through every avenue there is to find out when it was, to see if it was done in the time it needed to be. The best I came up with was with Mid-America. It has 3 furnaces and 3 gas units, or gas meters. Mid-America went back, and in all of their records, they have never put in a meter there. So that meant that IPS is the one that converted into 3. I have no idea where IPS is, how to get a hold of them, and I don't know when they pulled out of Waterloo. I know it was a long time ago, but we are willing to go ahead and pave the parking like it's supposed to be, and I just wish you'd reconsider. Like I said, we've done nothing but keep the property up, improve it. We've gotten all the permits we needed. We had no idea who converted it or when. And now we're being told can't do it, or I can't have it. I don't know what else to say or do. I went through the title, I've got all of that. I've tried to find who may have, and I can't track anybody down. The people that we bought it for have vanished. I have no idea where they're from or at now. So we're just kind of at the rock and a hard spot, and I don't know where to go or what to do to get the information you guys need. I've gone through the fire department to see, because they've been doing inspection on us every year or 2, and they've done all 3 units. I thought maybe they could tell us, oh yeah, in 19 whatever, it was only a 2-unit, and now it's a 3-unit. But they hadn't even, I talked to Cindy there, and she can't even come up with any records as to how long it's been. I went through, I've been through every place trying to find out when this got converted, and I cannot tell you when. But like I said, we've had it since 2000, and we bought it as a 3-unit.
Do you live there, ma'am? Is it, or is
No.
it, okay,
No,
and so
it's
there are
here.
tenants in all, are there tenants in all 3?
One of them just moved out, but yes, yeah, there's tenants in all 3 of them. There was until this month.
Any questions from the commission? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else in the audience? Please come forward.
Pat Morrissey again, 824 West 3rd Street, and I'm here to speak against this and ask that you go with the city's recommendation to deny this. I'm also speaking on behalf of Quentin Hart, who's a city council person for Ward 4, because he's just not able to attend the meeting. But there's really not much else to say other than what has been said by the city staff regarding why this should be denied. You know, we have ordinances for a reason. We don't have an ordinance like the city of Cedar Falls has for single-family conversions, but this is a prime example, or one of the examples, of a situation in which we're asked to legalize something that our ordinances do not allow us, or say that we should not allow to occur. And I would hope that you would concur with that, and that you would vote to deny this request to legalize something that's illegal.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
I'm Allie Parrish, Executive Director of Iowa Heartland Habitat for Humanity, 803 West 5th Street. And I just wanted to say I'm here if you have any questions for us. And I did submit a letter earlier today that kind of stated our opinion on it. So if you have any questions, I am here. Thank you.
And just to summarize the letter, because Habitat is, looks like you've done quite a bit of work in that neighborhood.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions?
I'm
or
curious,
discussion?
how did this come to our attention?
That's a good
Yeah.
question.
This is Miller with staff. The applicants actually came to our department to pull a permit to fix, I believe it was a side porch area awning on their house. when I was doing the staff review, I noticed that it didn't meet many density requirements, so that kind of raised the red flags for me. I started looking into it a little bit further, and we did not have any indication that it was a conversion. We didn't have any previous permits or anything converting it into a 3-family duplex.
And does the city have any documented grandfathering clauses for this kind of situation for zoning changes?
Anything prior to 1969, that would be grandfathered in, considered grandfathered in. So if it was a 3-plex prior to 1969, it would be considered grandfathered.
And have you run that one to ground yet?
We have looked into the Polk County directories, and those basically list the addresses and all the tenants in those addresses, and at that time there was only one tenant. In 1969 it showed. So.
Okay, any further questions? There's nobody in the audience. Would entertain a motion on this? And the recommended motion is for denial on page 34.
This is Tackett before we go forward, and I do feel like we need to, I'm personally in support of the recommendation, but I feel bad for you. Because I feel like this is not the first time something like this has come before a commission where I feel like someone's been blindsided, the buyer. And I feel very bad that you're just now finding this out. And I wonder how many of them are in our city just, not being, and that's a hard decision. So I just want to let you know personally, it is nothing against you. I just feel bad that somebody along the road knew what they were doing. And unfortunately, I feel like you're left holding the bag. So however we want to let you know it's not personal. You just have to take in consideration. But I feel very bad for you that you were bought something, in my opinion, not on good faith. Somebody knew that wasn't right and did it on their own, so I'm sorry for that.
Mrs. Anderson with staff, just to note, the city council through the building department has taken recent steps to have basically a rental certification process. And so through that process, we'll be expecting to potentially find quite a few more of these illegal conversions that would have to come back through and go through the analysis process for recommendation or denial.
Please, yeah, just step forward to the microphone.
Now what happens to us? What do we do? What do we have to do? Does this go back to a single-family dwelling? Can we do a duplex? What?
I don't know,
What
is a
do we do?
duplex option available because it's R1, correct? Or
Well, it's
R3.
R3
I'm sorry,
also.
R3
It's
is
R3.
one, the setback.
This is Schrader with staff, yeah. And actually, a duplex is permitted in every residential zoning district, including R1. I'm not sure if this lot meets everything for a duplex either, including lot size and lot width. That is something we could look at. This is just a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment would have the final decision. I think that is something that could be analyzed as to whether or not it meets the requirements as a duplex, or if the staff would recommend approval of a variance to go to the duplex level, because if it doesn't meet it, it's probably not extremely deficient. As to the the question she had as to what next, and this is just a recommendation, but if it was also denied by the Board of Adjustment, yeah, it would have to be converted back to a legal either single-family home or a duplex if the Board of Adjustment approved it as such.
This is Morrison. Not to be devil's advocate, but I agree with the content of what Habitat for Humanity's written on building up communities. But the situation's existed at least 14 years that we can account for. I think any potential harm that it could have caused has been happening for 14 years, and we haven't heard of any significant harm. I also think if the fire marshal or if city people have been on property and inspected multiple times, the city had plenty of opportunity to say this doesn't fit our code. I think it's unfortunate that they were doing what we would want them to do. They came in for a permit to do an addition, and almost feels like they're being punished for compliance. So even though I understand the reasons that we have the code, this has been existing for a long time with no harm. I'm kind of interested in maybe letting it continue. Are there any restrictions that could be put on the property that if it were sold, it could not be continue this way?
And I think my concern, because I don't live far from there, is that I feel like you seem like good people, good landlords, but I think because there are so many that aren't, I think it's just the wording. When you start getting a small density, I think there are some, my daughter and her family just pulled out of one where I called her because I didn't have fire extinguishers for me. It was terrible. I cut myself on a broken handle that shouldn't even have been there. So there's good landlords. There are some that seem like they slip through the cracks, and I think it's just when you're getting density, I think it's just, in my opinion, it's trying to find that balance between having good landlords and having that space and having everything met appropriately. And I'm thinking maybe if the duplex is a way to go, that might be a better fit. They are changing the neighborhood, but maybe if you can work with them. And again, I know what you're saying, Leah, but I think I almost sometimes feel like you're an exception, because here you are. Don't get too many. I've been almost 3 years. Don't get too many that come before us because you did do the right thing. So maybe if we can find a balance. I find these people have been very nice. I moved downtown because I like it here. I found the people have been very nice on this commission and the planning department, and I bet if you worked with them, they could probably maybe find some answers to see that you as a landlord can still have a property that, you know, brings income and you can do the improvements. So I'm supportive. See if we can. No. I just, if we can find that balance, I think you could still see a happy ending in this down the road.
As a Sorensberry, I'm absolutely in agreement with you, Leah, that this property has been maintained for 14 years. And the tenants have, the fire marshal, like you said, have been out there and all. And I think in any case, this deserves the variance as it is today, with the agreement that they do the hard surfacing of the driveway.
This is Hall. I would make the note, though, that we are going to see a ton of these moving forward once the certification comes. And there's going to be a lot of landlords who are doing the right thing. And at what point are we setting the precedent? These folks came, they did the permit, they did the right thing. Had they not done that, when the certification time came, we would have been in the same position that we are right now. And so for that reason, setting that precedent, that we're going to be seeing a lot of these moving forward. And at what point are we going to say that we stand with our elected representatives on council when they passed the certification process?
And maybe that certification process, I don't know if they knew what can of worms that they were going to open. And I think every time you need to look at the situation, because if it's not degrading the neighborhood, then so what's its purpose? Just because we have a new statute? I'm not so sure.
This is Schrader with staff. Unfortunately, a lot of the conversions have sold, have changed ownership over the years. So that's going to be a very common thread, common theme as these start to come to light and come through this process that, well, I didn't know that when I bought it. And that is tough. But that's going to be a common thread. And is that going to be the precedent? Is that going to be the standard as long as the person that bought it didn't know that it was illegally converted at that time? And as for the impact on the neighborhood, they do have a negative impact. We do have neighborhoods that are seriously deteriorating, property values going down, properties not being kept up well, parking that's a mess all over streets, all over yards. It is a serious problem, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Yeah, please, we'll kind of get moving. Yeah, nice.
I realize this. It's not the first permit we applied for. We've had a permit years ago for a roof. We've had a permit for windows. It's not the first time, and we weren't told about any of this before.
This is Schrader with staff, and I actually was going to comment on that one and forgot as well. The comment was on that fire inspector has been in there many times. The fire inspector does not have information or knowledge on zoning requirements. He has no knowledge when he goes in there that the lot size is 15,000 square feet, but it needs to be 20,000 square feet based on the, and I'm just making up numbers, but he has no information on that. Same with various building permits that are issued, particularly any sort of roof, remodel, windows. The building inspections department issues those permit. There is no planning and zoning sign off on those. That has been discussed since this has been coming up more and more as to whether or not we're going to have to be a sign off on every single permit that gets issued. We are a required sign off for anything that changes footprint, basically in addition to the house, an awning on the house, anything that is kind of an addition, protrusion. We are a required sign off. But other, lots of other permits like remodels, roofs, we are not. And again, the building inspections department does not have information on what minimum lot size, minimum density per family, parking requirements. That's not information they have.
This is Morrison. Question for staff. Did they pay a fee with this?
Yes.
So another possible thing to consider, because we talked about could it be switched to a duplex instead of a 3-unit. If we table the conversation and give them a chance to withdraw it and resubmit it as a duplex, will they not lose any money?
Correct.
Is that an option for the applicant? Or do you want to vote? It's up to you. You submitted the application, and so I think just to be fair to you, you submitted the application for 3. I know there's probably a consequence of 2, but.
Yes, we would consider that. We'd be grateful to have the opportunity to do that.
Alright.
Okay,
So
I make a
make a
motion
motion
that we
to table.
table the request.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to table this request, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried, so this is tabled. But what we'd ask is that you get in touch, maybe as early as tomorrow, with the Planning and Zoning Office on that to discuss the possibilities and kind of what's available here based on what you've heard as well. So, okay, thank you. Okay, that takes care of all the items except for Nottingham 3rd Edition. And so I will abstain from voting on this, and generally, I just would feel more comfortable going down into the audience and doing this, because I know there are a number of people here that want to talk about this as well. So turn it over to the chair. Now, you have 1 hour. Okay.
What time do we need to be done?
I tell you what, let's try to, we'll try to get through as much as we can here. If we can, great. If not, don't worry about it. But thank you for coming in. It's kind of above and beyond. So we'll try to get through it. But I will abstain. I'll actually move down, and then Lintak will take over the chair.
Okay, we're under our final item on the agenda today. With the commission's permission, we're going to combine the request by Robin Hood Enterprises LLC for the 11-lot preliminary plat of Nottingham 3rd Edition, zoned R1 and 2-family residence district, along with the request by Robin Hood Enterprises LLC for the 11-lot final plat of Nottingham 3rd Edition, zoned R1 2-family residence district. For the sake of time, with the commission's approval, we'll go ahead and we'll hear all of them at the same time. Is that fair?
We'll also have a street naming after that.
Okay, and then we'll wrap up the street naming.
This is Miller with staff. The request for a preliminary and final plat of Nottingham 3rd Edition would create 11 lots on 25.972 acres for residential development. The plat shows a stormwater detention area within the 100-year floodplain that is located just west of the proposed buildable lots. This request was tabled at the commission at their September 2nd meeting, as concerns were raised by the adjoining property owners, including drainage concerns. The applicant's engineer has reviewed the concerns and has added some additional drainage easements to the proposed plat, but have otherwise indicated that the area will adequately drain. At the September 2nd meeting, area residents also expressed concerns on flooding in the area and indicated that the official floodplain map was incorrect and that the entire area floods, and suggests that the homes on the proposed lots would have a significant flooding problems. However, the applicant's engineer has submitted data that shows that the lowest ground elevation along the rear of the existing lots is 886 feet above mean sea level, which is 10 feet higher than the FEMA calculated base flood elevation. The proposed subdivision is being properly laid out, graded, and improved, including stormwater water drainage improvements to meet or exceed all requirements of the City of Waterloo. The plat shows an extension of all utilities, including water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer, coming from existing lines located within Nottingham Heights additions to the northwest. The future land use map designates this area as mixed residential. The preliminary plat shows 11 lots being platted for residential development. The plat shows a 35-foot building line throughout lots 1 through 11. The plat also will be replatting a portion of Lot 2 of Nottingham First Edition. The plat does meet all criteria required for submission of preliminary and final plats according to the subdivision ordinance. At the September 2nd meeting, area residents also expressed concerns of the proposed lots being significantly smaller than the lots in the existing subdivisions. The preliminary plat shows lots ranging from 16,704 square feet to 42,773 square feet. The range of lot sizes in the surrounding subdivision is a little over 17,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. The average lot size in the preliminary plat is 27,478 square feet, and the average lot size in the surrounding subdivision is 27,181 square feet, which is a difference of 297 square feet. Therefore, staff recommends that the request for preliminary and final plat of Nottingham 3rd Edition be approved for the following reasons. The plat is in accordance with the subdivision ordinance. The plat is in accordance with comprehensive plan and future land use map, which classify this area as mixed residential, and the plat will create additional infill development site within the primary growth area. Questions?
Thank you. Okay, this time, is there anyone representing the applicant who'd like to come forward and speak? Please state your name and address, sir.
My name is Rick Young, 3849 Trent Lane, Waterloo. One of the developers, one of the owners of Robin Hood. And we were not able to be here last month. Was out of town, but watched on the video and want to comment on or answer some of the comments. What we did was transcribe the video, and so I'll probably make out what I'll do is read some of the statements here, answer those, hopefully answer your questions in the process here. The first one up, first of all, what we're asking for is a platting. It's already zoned, it's already in the master plan, meets all the requirements. We've been through the utilities group and with the city and council. We've made some adjustments on the deeded education, sidewalks, and other items there, the homeowners association, everything else. So we think we know we've got everything matching all the legal requirements here for the platting. The first speaker was Judge George Stigler, who's here, and the first item he talked about, or one of the items, and I'll cut down these comments a little bit to make it a little quicker, but he stated one of the proposals calls for a new installation of a retention pond, and what you're going to have is water that stands forever. We'll get on that a little bit later on, but that is true. One of the requirements that you require, city requires, the Iowa DNR requires, because the EPA from Washington requires it, is detention pond for new subdivisions. The City of Waterloo started doing this, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago in residential. It's been done in commercial for a long time. So the requirement for the retention pond is your requirement, has to be done. If you drive up 4th Street now, and when they drive home to their subdivision, they're going to get up 4th Street and Ridgeway, and the new detention pond was just put in there. And the new addition, the Church in the Rock, it's pretty small, you can see it there. They go down the hill and up 4th Street in the 4800 block, there's some 12-plexes there. Both of those have detention ponds that we're talking about. It's the requirement for residential. Another item, he stated there's a natural spring or something, and the kids in the neighborhood taking to play in the water, it's fine. That's not a natural spring, that's the end of the storm sewer for the other subdivisions there. It will be connected on eventually, with this being the final addition of that subdivision, we'll take it down to Prescott Creek where it'll go. So what the kids have been playing in is the storm sewer water. So the water's from the neighbor's sump pumps there on Williams Drive, and when it's raining, it's from the catch basins there. One of the things that was talked about that there's that we offered to Robin Hood Enterprises offered the maintenance of this retention pond to the City of Waterloo. That's not exactly correct. The maintenance of the retention pond will be done by a homeowners association. The 12 landowners, 11 in Tract B, will own it. They will maintain it. It's their liability and their responsibility. We did offer the city, and we've got it in the Tract D there, which is the floodplain area. We offered to the city that we would give that land to them free of charge. They can maintain it. They would have control of a floodplain. I've done that a couple times in Cedar Falls, the city of Cedar Falls. They want to own the floodways so that people don't cause problems in there. If the city doesn't want that, the homeowners association will take both Tract C and Tract D down there, which is in the floodplain and the floodway. Getting back to the retention pond, one of the statements here is when you build or you permit the building of the retention pond, what you're going to get is basically nothing more than an invitation to harm the neighborhood kids and the property values of everyone who lives in the neighborhood. And worse yet, it's going to inflict untold financial harm on the people who have the misfortune of buying into these lots in Abraham. The retention pond is going to be a huge, unsightly, muddy mess. There will be weeds, there will be mice, there will be rats, there will be snakes. And when you have something like that, it naturally attracts people who want to dump old tires, washing machines, and whatever. They don't want to pay or take out the dump. They will see the retention pond, and they will, over time, simply take everything out there and dump it. And that will cause untold harm to those of us who live in the neighborhood. You're going to expose the population out there, and indeed the population of the entire city of Waterloo, to possible West Nile fever, encephalitis, and heartworm. I'm kind of at a loss of words for that. I'm usually not at a loss of words, but that's probably my 40 years of being in the development business, the classic NIMBY statement I've ever heard. What you're getting here is the neighbors that are there don't want it in their backyard. This whole thing about encephalitis and West Nile virus in the retention pond that's required, first of all, we're stating it as a retention. It will be 3 to 4 feet deep, the black area there, and I'll show you later on a little better cross section of it there. It will have pipes coming out of the bottom of it into the Prescott Creek to drain it, so it won't hold water. After a storm, it'll slow it down. But because of the low water table out there, that 3 to 4 feet to 5 feet deep of that retention pond could sometimes have water in it from the water table coming up, like it does over on Tract D over there, which is on the other side of the wooded area. So at times there may be water standing there because of the groundwater, but it will be piped from the bottom of the retention basin to get it out on normal flooding or normal rain situations. In regards to the developer, he said Norm Hayek, who had owned this land a while back with the idea of future platting and sale of lots placed there. So this was from day one, when the city got it, planning in, I think it was 2004. There is a master plan for residential lots in this area. It's not anything that sprang up on the neighbors. They've known about it, could have known about it, and it's been readily available, that information. In fact, the sewer that comes through there where the street's going to be was the first sewer put in. We're using, I think, 3 or 4 of the stubs for the new lots that we're putting in. So those have been in the ground for over 10 years, that part of it. Okay, and there will be fill on some of the land right now. I'll show you that in the cross section. The sewers come up, I think the deepest part's going to be about 3 or 4 feet to be filled there. The lots they'll be filled on the west side, and there'll be some cutting and fill on the east side too. North and south really at that point in time, as opposed to east and west. But when they fill that, and that water is going to be thrown back, and it's going to be thrown back onto all the landowners who now live along William Drive. We're going to have a veritable swimming pool in our backyards each and every time there is a major rain. Okay, and then they're going to have to put in an incredible number of truckloads of fill, and when they put in the fill, the really bad shape of that land will be drastically changed. Everyone who lives there will be affected by the water runoff. There will be fill, but it will be out of the floodplain, and I'll show you that shortly. What you have to realize is not the laws of our law books, but the laws of nature and the laws of physics. Water runs downhill. It doesn't run uphill from this subdivision, and we'll show you some of the cross sections there. The other thing is water seeks a level, a horizontal level, an equilibrium, and we'll show you some other things there. Probably the best bet now is if we can show that map. Well, it's going to be hard. We made some copies. Let me give you copies of this. And maybe you don't work near as good as the old. I want to give that to each of the commissioners, and then we've got some counsel in there. Would it be possible to put this up there on the board and do it from that point? I can come up there. It's a busy map, and about all I'll be able to do is show you. And this map's older than the one here. We just made some of the recent changes. Okay. And about what I can do is kind of point it out, and you can see on yours better. First thing that was brought up by the neighbors is in the back of lots 2, 3, and 4 down here, and our new lot 10 and 11, they get standing water down here quite a bit after rains. We have surveyed this better. There's a natural low spot there. I think when their final contractor was grading that out, grading contractor probably dug it a little low. In the back of lots 2 and 3 and 4 there, that's 12, 15 inches lower than the undeveloped land going toward the creek there. So they're holding it. I think one of the neighbor ladies said their yard is squiggly back there, and I'm sure it is. It'll be really squiggly today because that water's got to seep out of there and it takes a long time. We did put in on the plat, the amended plat, we put a easement from 9, 10 through down here, and we talked to a tiling contractor. We could put in a tile for them, like a farm tile. We would pay half the price. I think the price bid came out to $3,700. We're willing to pay half of that if they want it. That will help dry out their land in through there. But that problem is from grading not being done correctly when it was done. If you look now at your map, and you've got the new ones in black here, it looks like a spider. You see the part here, that's the roadbed, the elevation. What we've done at Lot 8 here, which is really probably the most extreme, you see the line across here? That's a cross section at that elevation there. Lot 8 was where the flood plain comes up closest to the lot and farthest into it on the old one there. And so we've got a cross section here. This is the street. There'll be fill going up toward 8, and then fill, and then up to the back of lot 1, I think it is here, of the last subdivision. Then the 100-year flood on your map is right here, BFE 874.7, basic flood elevation. That's the 100-year flood, and that line shows where it goes across there. We went and all the land has been surveyed now. These are pretty close, but it's you can see that's the 100-year flood. Now, the blue line just above that, which is 1.1 feet above the 100-year flood down here, is the 500-year flood. And in my mind, we're more concerned with the 500-year flood because it's much harder to get to than the 100-year flood. So that's about a foot in 1.1 feet higher. On your maps, what you will see, the part that we can test is not correct here, is that 500-year flood goes right to this line right here, which is the back of Lot 8. So it's right to here. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. So you can see that Lot 8 and this whole row of lots is out of, not only out of the 100-year floodplain, it's out of the 500-year floodplain. We will submit this to FEMA to have them check out the numbers, and if what we show is, we feel is correct there, that will be taken out of the floodplain from that standpoint, so that the whole subdivision will be out of the floodplain with Tract B. Over here on the right-hand side, you can see some different lines here in elevations. The Gort rear lot line, that's lot 2. Their rear lot line is 886. And of the lots in the existing subdivisions there, that is the lowest point of all those. And we'll get to that magenta line in a minute here, but that's lot 886 at that point. If you go up on the corner lot here, which is Judge Stiegler's lot, his rear lot line is 890 feet elevation. So he's 15 feet higher than the 100-year flood, and he's 13 feet higher than his lowest part in his lots are, the back corner of this lot then is
Number 11 you're speaking of.
behind lot number 11.
Number 8 right in front of 11.
Yeah, it's this house, right here.
Got it.
And then Ritland's over here on this corner, his lot line is 892, and that's also this point that you're seeing right here. So to get back to the problems here, Judge Stigler, 2 or 3 of the neighbors were talking about the flooding, that they've had flooding. Didn't grab the quote. Judge Stigler talks about the flooding. The engineer's wrong. They know it's flooded. The water's been back here. And so what, and I can read that quote to you a little bit here, but let's, as long as I'm up here, let's look and see what this 86 is. This right here, the lowest spot, is the bottom of Prescott Creek. Prescott Creek runs along in here in the trees. And I think one of you were asking during the thing about when you see the floodplain and they overlay the blue on it. So that's the floodplain fills up, but only during high water marks. And then they've got lines in here, 100 and 200-year flood. What now, the city accepted the new FEMA map 2 years ago, I think it was, and FEMA studies the creek, makes those elevations with their programming, and they come up with 874, and it's the 875.1, I think it is, for the 500-year flood there. What they don't do is go out and survey the land. They basically I think they just take a real wide magic marker and put the lines up there where they think it is. But once it's been actually surveyed, you can see they show on those maps, this line here, the FEMA 500, which is up into the Lot 8. They show the 100 into the Lot 8, where the lot line is back here. You can see from this map where it's horizontal, those are outside of the lots. The blue line, the 500 line, really comes to just right at that back lot line. So FEMA, when we send in the application, FEMA will go through their math again. If their math is correct, survey's correct, they then will change that and remove that land from the floodplain. I think you did one not too long ago. I mean, it's a fairly common thing for here.
So Rick, what you're saying here is that on our maps here on our table, that the 2 red lines with the floodway arrows,
Yes, right?
that is your survey. And this is a proposal that you'll give to FEMA
Well,
versus where they had drawn the external boundaries.
their numbers here are right. We don't contest those.
Yeah.
It's these 2 lines that we contest. They're about 3 feet high. So if they find out their numbers are right, then they'll move those lines down, and those will be outside of the lots, the back of the lots. So the whole subdivision there and Track B will be removed from the flood map.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, to go back to the owner's experience, the neighbor's experience, we're very concerned about that. They've all told, we're going to flood, the engineer's wrong, and that's what we're told. So let's question that. We've talked to the city on what they think it is. They've approved this. Street Department hasn't had it flood over Shawless, the 100-year flood elevation. But we put a line on there, this 886 line. It's a red line. Okay? That starts at their lowest spot back here on that subdivision. And if you take that, now, remember I told you, 2 things about water you need to know. It goes downhill, doesn't go uphill. It goes downhill and it keeps an equilibrium, a levelness. So take that across the creek, right here, through the woods, through Track D, that retention or spillway there, and then you get to the back of Edgebrook Drive. Okay? And if you look down below, you can see where the 100-year flood and the 500-year flood right here come in and hit behind those houses. They're in that spillway, in that waterway there. And I'm a news junkie, okay? I read 3 newspapers a day when I can and watch the news in the morning and watch the news at night. Judge Stigler says there's been at least 3, I can show you his quotes there and the thing, since he's moved out there in the last 6 years, there's been 3 almost 500-year floods out there. And by implication anyway, or innuendo, when you hear that, well, the water level's been here. Water level's equal on top, right? You take that 886 line over here, and you'll see the center line of Edgemont. This row of houses. If that was the case, the Courier, KWWL, 3 times in the last year hasn't picked up on the 150 houses down here. I don't know, maybe Councilman Jones knows how many down there, but if that was the case, those houses come out, that 86 line on these houses in here is about 6 or 7 feet in their living room, first floor. Did we miss that in the news? Have those houses been flooded out that many times in the last 6 years? But what they've got is it's been up, getting us up to the 100-year apparently, but it's stayed inside there. So that's the lowest part in their subdivision. But that's not what it's flooding to. What they're getting is groundwater coming down through here, and it's working its way down through the plat. And that will continue. I mean, every time it rains hard, that water's going down there. But it's not flooding to this elevation. It's not flooding here because the water's coming up and over their backyard.
So in that tiling that you talked about, would you put in laterals to stretch across some of these others, or is the drainage this way?
Well, what they've got's low spotted.
Okay.
I mean, there's great drainage you can see down here. I mean, it's going downhill. But they've got low spots back behind their yards. And we participate with them to help get that out, so their yards are dry up.
This is Schrader with staff as he's moving back to the podium. The other thing I would like to comment, he talked about where FEMA has the floodplain line drawn, where they're calculating based on FEMA's calculated base flood elevation, where it should be drawn based on the contours out there and their plans to submit to get that corrected. But the other thing I wanted to add to that, even if it's not corrected, yes, that shows the floodplain going into those lots, but not where the building footprint was. So even if that was not the case and the map didn't get changed, it would not impact the ability to build those lots and have those houses be outside of the floodplain as currently drawn.
One of the other neighbors, Pam Wolf, talked about the deed of dedication, Lot 2. Triangle apparently was taken off of her lot and back there. You can see Lot 2 there along 4th Street. And that was, when we ended up with the property, that was not platted property. That triangle had really nothing to do with the other one when it was taken out of there. It was an addition to Lot 11, which we're proposing there, Lot 11. And the deed of dedication does allow that. You can add on, you can split lots and add on. You can't make an extra lot. Gary Luderek, Lot 4. He questioned about Dr. Naylor not having access to the road down there. He does with his property on, he lives up on Williams Drive. That's why he bought it. We originally talked about extending this through there, but he wanted that because he didn't want development behind it there. Mr. Luderek also, and it was brought up, stated that this doesn't maintain the character of Nottingham Edition. Let's look into that a little bit. This is really the 5th edition in the Nottingham that Norm Hyrick started. There's Nottingham Edition, Nottingham First, Nottingham Second, Nottingham Heights, and now we're Nottingham Third. If you take the lots per square footage now, Nottingham Edition, there were 5 lots. The average size of those 5 lots is 18,366 square feet. Nottingham First Edition, where most of the neighbors here are from, there were 4 lots. That's 35,873 square feet. Nottingham Second Edition, there were 8 lots. Those averaged 25,870. Nottingham Third Edition, or Nottingham Heights is 28,640 for 6 lots. And Nottingham Third Edition that we're doing, the 11 lots, are 27,475, which would make it 4 out of the 5, not the smallest. Or no, excuse me, that would make it 3 out of 5. And if you add Tract B, which is part of this subdivision, the average for the 12 lots is 34,895. So it would be the 5th, or the 2nd largest in the subdivision. Without Tract B, it's the 3rd, it's right in the middle. When you're building, it's not the depth of the lot, it's important, just the square footage, it's the width. Our smallest lot is 100 feet wide. That's kind of the gold standard now. We've got lots 120 and even bigger, and some of the lots out there are bigger than that. But to give you an idea of, these lots are, the smallest lot we have is 100 by 190. So, 165. What you can get on that, if you take the side yards, the front yard, and the backyard off, you can build a 10,000 square foot ranch. That's not exactly crimping anybody's style, I don't think, in Waterloo for not being in character there. What you also want to think is width. If you want to think of some comparable lots, we've all been on Prospect Boulevard.
I apologize both to Mr. Young and to the commission, and I have no problem with Mr. Young's presentation. He's been speaking now for in excess of 30 minutes or so, and he may speak for 3 hours and 30 minutes if he chooses, but I would like equal time for all of us, and if everybody's going to talk for 30 or 40 minutes or so, we'll be here at midnight. And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with Mr. Young's presentation, but I just want it understood that we will be asking for comparable time.
Sure. I think it's because, you weren't here the last month. I think it's to address, if I'm correct, giving him time to address issues because he wasn't able to make the meeting last month. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, right. No, you'll be able to have a chance to respond, but we're going to give him a chance that he didn't have last month, and we can move on. It is almost 6:45, so I don't know if there's, without being respectful, if there's anything else.
I'm down
but-
to answering the very last questions, and I think George Stigler took 20-some minutes for his comments at that point in time. But yeah, no, I'm just about done. 1 or 2 other things, questions were brought up. Tile. One of the things I think, Lot 10, Lot 11, and behind lots 2 and 3 and 4 of the first edition, there's a lot of water comes through there. And for Tract B and Lot 10, they have to make sure that that water is allowed to get out of there. That's state law. I mean, you can't dam up water above you there. So when they build on Tract B, they're going to have to put a culvert in to allow that water to get through there, so that water goes down naturally downhill to the bottom of Prescott Creek.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, again, Mr. Young wasn't able to make last month, and so from what we have heard is he's addressing issues that were brought last month. What I'd like to do is be able to hear from the audience, and if there's any questions, if there's anything to what he has said. If we did this in a debate style, it would be, here's what the presenter, the person that wants to do the development is requesting. We heard responses last month. We gave Rick that time because he was not able to be there to address it. So if we have any concerns, questions, we would really welcome that and appreciate your input because we do want to hear from you. And if there's any of you at this time would like to come forward, please do so. Come to the microphone, state your name, your address. We'd like to hear from you at this time.
Thank you very much. I got a few handouts here. How many do we need? Just tell me the number.
10.
Yeah.
7, 2, 3. There you go. My name is Gary Luteric. I spoke last time engineer. Lived in Lot 4 on the first edition since July 2004. And thank you for your time to listen to our side of the story. What was pretty interesting last time is I was noticing the committee and the support staff, and one of the characteristics I noticed was that you seem to be very pleasing, very empathetic, to find ways to move things forward. And that got me thinking, and I'm going, well, you know, which direction are they leaning? What is their purpose? So I went in and looked up the ordinance 3196, and it says shall promote health and safety and morals and order, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare. And I thought, you know, these are good things. I'm feeling more comfortable. But my point 8 on the first page is to conserve and protect the value of property of current and future owners and taxpayers. And I thought, okay, now we're really getting down to the core purpose of this committee. And that's a good thing that we understand that. So, and to facilitate adequate provisions for transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other things. And also in there says we need to recognize the conflict of interest of individuals and corporations that seek to gain financially. This includes, you know, the Robin Hood Enterprises, the engineering organizations, and things like that. So really, you're going to hear a series of 11 or 12 arguments on our side. And we'd like you to take these into consideration on making one side of the story versus the other versus the defined purpose of the committee. So, and the other thing we'd like to understand is, you know, we have ordinances for a good reason. And there was some discussion earlier about, well, you know, trying to be empathetic and side with that. And, you know, I'm kind of more of a, yes, I understand, and I felt for the woman too. Who wouldn't? You know, it was not her fault. But on new developments especially, I believe we should conduct all business fully, completely within the zoning ordinance and the legal requirements. So I asked myself, I says, well, you know, what are we here for? And I don't mean just in this room, I mean, what are we here for on earth? What is our purpose in life? What has God ordained for us? And, you know, our purpose here is to help each other out where we can, to protect each other, and from harm, and to take care of each other. So that's the perspective I think that you're going to hear from these two other gentlemen here tonight in going on with this discussion, that you're going to see the perspective from coming back to the core of your ordinance as well as that purpose in our lives. So I was going to move on at this point, and what we'd like to do is we've presented a signature petition, and we have 27 signatures, and I'll read it to you and then I'll pass it on. It says, we the Understein hereby state our opposition to the request by Robin Hood Enterprises preliminary plat of Nottingham 3rd Edition. We believe the proposal represents serious danger to health, safety, well-being, property values of existing neighborhoods, and the future occupants of the proposed subdivision. We ask that the City of Waterloo Planning and Zoning Commission not approve this said plat. And while Mr. Young was making his statements, and I wanted to bring up a couple of things. He said that the 3rd edition, the street and the sewerage was in there since 2004. I moved in 2004 of July, and there was nothing back there but an old barbed wire fence and farmland. So it's not something I would have normally brought up. That wasn't added till years later. Just a point of data that's not accurate. He said that tiling was planned for lot 10, and there's no really guarantee that tiling is going to take care of a water problem. Yes, it does help, but ask yourselves, do you want to be the person who owns lot 10 and put your house on it with your basement and have a problem? We already know it's an issue. The other thing is he mentioned, well, we're going to go to FEMA and we're reasonably confident with his graphics and engineering calculations that they're going to approve that. Well, my position is this, our position is that we shouldn't be approving anything until we hear back from FEMA and see exactly what happens. Huh?
This is Schrader with staff. Sorry to interrupt, but I answered that. Even if the map does not change, where they're going to build the houses is not in the floodplain.
You know, you're kind of insulting the way you jump up and interrupt.
Sorry.
And we don't appreciate that. You seem to be the one single individual who seems to be clearly on the defensive side towards getting approved by developers. And it happened last time. I've watched it done in other situations besides ours. Let's just stick to the facts.
Exactly.
And my point was, you didn't listen very well. My point was that I'm asking the commission to not make approval until we hear back from FEMA, period. Okay? End of discussion. So, water seeks its own level equilibrium, and that is very true. That's mostly when it's stagnant, but it doesn't happen when it's flowing, because otherwise you wouldn't get the flow if you didn't have it flowing downhill towards the river. So water can back up as well and go uphill if you've got a restriction, and moving forward with that. So I, too, if you don't mind, have something I'd like to bring up and point out to staff. So this, the point of all this is you will find it on your page 4. I had a little problem with the person blowing up the print, so they cut off the sides, so I thought I'd include it in here. One of the things that we did on March 10th of 2013 was walk out my deck and take pictures of the flooding. And we took a couple, you know, wide angle lens is only so good, so this is the main picture, and then we extended it into the neighbor's yard over here. So we looked at this, we tried to label fairly accurately, but not perfectly. Where lot 9 is, you can see the water in lot 9. Lot 10 has 2 furrows in it of water, and moving forward, and track B has a lot of water, and Mr. Young did state that as well. 11 didn't appear to have, and lots 8, it's coming very close. So what we tried to do was put a red line on here, the top view, to show where the water is. So you can see that it's covering quite a bit of area over here. So the point is, the picture clearly shows lots 8, 9, 10, and track B to have a lot of water. Do we really want to take the risk of this? I mean, what's the primary purpose? Okay, they have a profit motive. There's nothing wrong with seeking profit. But we're here, remember, the protection of ourselves and the people, and the things that the commission is here for, is to protect this from anybody having a problem. And I mean real protection, not some type of Band-Aid solutions that, well, we're going to tile and hope that takes care of it type of thing. So to protect the future landowners' health, safety, welfare, property values, we submit that we would deny the ability to approve this area right here. I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to turn over our side of the story to Wendell. And we will move forward. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Wendell Lupkus. I live at 4862 West 4th Street. That's the acreage just up the street from this development. I've lived there since 1999, and by occupation, I'm a land surveyor, and I'm very familiar with floodplain issues, floodway issues, that sort of thing. I apologize if my voice starts to fade, but I'll do the best. I also have some handouts here. Don't want to be left out. I also wasn't available last month, but I'm not going to ask for any extra time, so.
That's good. We appreciate you being here. And just for the record, we do appreciate all of you taking the time, because this commission does listen, and we do take things considerably. And once you continue, but I just want to let you know that we've gone through Summerlin for several months, and we did get a good ending, but we listened to both sides as fairly as we could. So we appreciate that you are here, and your concerns are going to be listened to. So we do appreciate it. Or sorry, go ahead and continue, sir.
I guess I'm going to take things in a little bit different direction at first. The first thing I want to talk about is the street extension. Right now, what we've got proposed is a cul-de-sac at the end, and then the property is split between the two lots. So there's actually no access now or in the future to Tract N, which was bought by Naylor. I think that's very short-sighted. We need to look, as a planning commission, we need to look beyond what the situation is today. Although we all think that our situation is going to be unchanged as long as we determine that we want it that way, that's not always the case. At some point in time, the Naylors will not own that property anymore. And what you're going to have is you're going to have a landlocked parcel that's zoned R, but it has virtually no access. Even if the people who buy the house want to keep it in hay ground or whatever, there's going to be no access through that. The house and the landscaping would prevent it to go for any access through the existing residential property. Further, in talking with the Naylors, and actually Mrs. Naylor was here but had to leave earlier, they are desirous of having the street right-of-way extended to the north line of the property so that in the future their property could be resold and split off and residential houses put on it. And further, if you look on the handout, the magenta line that goes up is what was originally back in 2004 the planned route for, I think it was Crusade Drive. However, that never came to pass, but that is roughly the same route, a little straighter here and there, but that's the same route that the sewer takes, which serves all the Nottingham additions. So it would be, it would make common sense to preserve that as a possible street corridor. If you look at it where either Luxley or William Drive, what their direction is currently, they're probably going to eventually wrap around back to 4th Street. So I think long-term planning-wise, it would be very good to extend the street full right-of-way width up to the north line of this plat. The cul-de-sac can still be accommodated just by simply putting an easement, temporary easement, if you will, temporary for as long as it's needed, a roadway easement, basically to the setback lines, which would allow for the cul-de-sac to exist. Then in the future, if that parcel is sold, if the street is determined that it needs to go through, then the city council just vacates that portion of the easement where the cul-de-sac is, and everything goes forward without much ado. As I said, Mrs. Naylor was here, and it's their request that the right-of-way, the street right-of-way goes fully up to their property line, and that the street is put in at 31 feet wide in anticipation of a future corridor all the way to Ranchero Road. Ranchero Road is the yellow on your handout. Oh, and just because we were talking about how we want to make sure we follow the ordinance, if we look at the subdivision ordinance, section 4.3 roads, item 1, general requirements, C 6 says proposed street shall be extended to the boundary lines of a tract to be subdivided unless prevented by topography or other physical conditions, or unless in the opinion of the Plan and Program Commission, such extension is not necessary or desirable for the coordination of the layout of the subdivision with the existing layout or the most advantageous future development of adjacent tracts. And that kind of goes to what I've just been talking about, the Nailers' future intentions and the possible connection to Ranchero Road. Okay, then I'd like to talk a little bit about Tract B on this plat. Tract B is just simply labeled for future development. But it needs to be restricted both on the plat and in the deed of dedication to single-family housing to be in character with the neighborhood. And I guess the reason that concern comes up is the previous developer, kind of a 11th inning deal, came up and started staking out condominiums up there behind people's houses where they'd made substantial investments based on the fact that this was all zoned R1. So that's I guess what the neighbors would expect from the commission, to put that condition on Tract B, that it be single family only. Then furthermore, there was some different discussion about whether Tract B could be served by sanitary sewer, and it cannot be served by sanitary sewer that exists along, well, Crusade Drive, or I think Shelley Court is what they're planning to rename it. Basically because of the waterway that goes through there, the sanitary would be above ground at that point. Again, we need to look at what does the subdivision ordinance say about that. And subdivision ordinance says, where public sanitary sewerage system is reasonably accessible, the applicant shall connect with same and provide sewers accessible to each lot in the subdivision. Now, if you look at the entirety of the property being subdivided, the far east, or the far west line of this property is on the far side of Prescott's Creek. The Prescott's Creek area sanitary sewer was put in several years back, 5 or 6 years ago, I don't remember now, but it's a trunk sewer line that goes down, goes half-mile south, and then wraps around, comes back up to Shawless Road east of that. And the idea of that was to make more areas accessible to gravity sewer, quite simply. And the west property line of this lies approximately 90 feet from the Prescott Creek sanitary sewer. So if we look at what the ordinance says and where this property lies, I think it's the duty of the Planning and Zoning Commission and perhaps the City Council to require that Tract B only be subdivided if it follows the ordinance and is served by gravity sewer from the readily accessible one across the creek. And then as a follow-up to that, I think I saw in the minutes that the complaint was that was not cost-effective. Before we go too far down that road, excuse me, you need to keep in mind that the developer has probably about 1,000 feet of sanitary sewer that was already in place, that they're not going to have any cost except for putting in a service here or two where the lots have changed. So that's a substantial reduction in their infrastructure costs, so you need to weigh that also. Okay. And then Bid 10. On your handout. Now I'd like to take a few minutes, excuse me, and talk about the borrow pit for the road. On the preliminary plat, it's labeled as a detention pond, but quite frankly, the volume that would be required for a detention pond for a subdivision of this size, the borrow pit is probably tenfold volumetrically what it needs to be for a detention pond. The primary use is going to be to generate fill to build the road. It's quite simple. It's an economics thing. If you look at the handout that I just sent around, as Mr. Young alluded to earlier, the borrow area is going to be between 3 and 5 feet deep. That doesn't really line up with how it's graphically depicted on the plat. It's about half as wide on the plat as what it's going to need to be to generate a similar amount of volume to do all the fill that they want to do. Based on that, what I did is I came 20 feet back of the existing lot line, rear lot line for Lot 8, which is shown on here, and then came down at a 4-to-1 and came over enough to generate the same volume as what is shown in the fill section on this cross section. Actually, that's a very conservative estimate because in earthwork you're going to have what's called a shrink factor. When you dig out a hole and recompact it, you're actually going to need like 125% in order to build that road. So this is actually a conservative estimate. Anyway, what this shows is that if you put that where it's designated on the plat behind the existing lot line, so that would be part of the homeowners association held property, then volumetrically you end up being where I show it there within about 75 feet of the edge of Prescott's Creek. In order to make that drain, the lowest point is going to have to be somewhere around 870. Now, unless there's a really good check valve system on that, that's going to back up at that level. Furthermore, even if there is a good check system on that, the surface of the ground at that point is approximately 872.5, which, looking on the flood insurance study, which is what was talked about earlier, and getting the right elevations along there, that would be approximately a 10-year flood. So given any given year, you got a 1 in 10 chance that the flood water is going to overtop that borrow pit, and then the homeowners association is going to be burdened with dealing with it, whether it scours it out. I mean, at that level, it could theoretically cut an oxbow in there, you know, and so it's probably, at the way it's shown, is going to be a maintenance issue. And I guess I haven't seen anything to the contrary. I don't know if the city engineer has seen any plans on what the detention or borrow pit's actually supposed to look like, but based on the information that was available, this is a reasonable assumption, I believe. Oh, and then finally, the homeowners association. The homeowners association is going to be asked to maintain basically a 900-foot long by 100 to 200 foot wide, 3 foot deep stormwater facility. Now, the average homeowner probably has very little knowledge of what that entails. And there is some language in the deed of dedication that basically says you're each going to be responsible for it per city code. You're each going to pay your proportionate share, that sort of thing. However, I don't know that that really tells anybody that's buying or building a home what they're in for. I would submit to you that, that another condition would be to require a more detailed detention stormwater maintenance agreement, which talks about the frequency of inspections, whether the city does annual inspections. Typically, they're geared with more inspections as the vegetation is established in the detention area, that sort of thing. And then it should have a trigger. Like I say, this one has a 10-year flood event. So what the engineer should do then is determine, well, what rainfall over a 24-hour period is going to create that. And I think that would be also a very reasonable criteria to place on that in order to move that forward. So with that, I will yield.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Clausen. I'm with Clausen Engineering. My address is 645 Sheridan Road. We developed a plan for this. First, I'd like to say that we attempted to meet with the group here, but I understand that an email was sent out just after the last meeting a month ago to not talk to us, to not to bring any of this information to us, so that we couldn't respond to it, because it would just be to our benefit. And that is not the purpose. That was not the purpose. The purpose is to understand what these people think exist, or say the existing problems are, so we can try to accommodate those. This was told to me by, this was told to me by one of the residents. What Wendell was talking about, this, the stormwater detention area, and that's how we have labeled it on the preliminary plat. There'll be a combination of retention and detention. There will be outlets to the creek. And the, the preliminary plat does say that this area will be used for borrow for the lots. The land on the other side of the creek, which Wendell takes hay off of, there was a swale excavated when they built Southland Park. And the low ground elevation there is about 18 inches above the bottom of the creek. This area that we're talking about with the stormwater detention area is 7 to 9 feet above the bottom of the creek. So we're on the order of 6-7 feet higher than that ground. That ground, when we've had some extended period of wet weather, Wendell probably can't hay the ground very well, but other times he can. We're not going to be the bottom of this detention area will not be as deep as the ground on the other side of the creek. It will have pipes going to the creek to drain it. It is all in floodplain. When it floods, it will come back up, but it will drain quicker than the area across the street. If there's other questions, I can try to respond to them.
And I'd like to interject that one of our commission members does need to leave 7:30 for an obligation, so we have about 15 minutes. Is there anything new or anything that just strong? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the mic.
Hi, I'm Pam Wolf, and I live at 4810 West 4th Street. I still have a question about Lot 2, which is now going to be Lot 11. When the deed of dedication was done for Nottingham 1, it states no lot, and I have the deed with me, no lot may be split to increase the number of lots in the subdivision. That was what they now want to have replatted so that they could legally put a home on that lot. Well, my question is this. The deed also states that undersigned and all persons and corporations hereafter acquiring any right, title, or interest in any of the lots in said subdivision, which when they purchased that land, they are now part of that, shall be taken and held to have agreed and covenanted with the owners of all other lots in this subdivision and with respective successors and assigns of all the rest of such other lots to conform to and observe all the foregoing covenants, restrictions, and stipulations as to the construction of building thereon for a period of 21 years from the date of filing of said plat and this deed of dedication for record, unless by a vote of a majority of the then year owners of the lots it is agreed to change the said covenants. So my question to you guys legally is, how can you just replat it without our permission? Because our deed of dedication said, first of all, we split that lot per the deed of dedication, said no home could be on that lot. So when they purchased that, they knew per this deed, they could not put a home on that lot. So that's why they want to replat Lot 2 and make it Lot 11. But can they legally do that when our covenant says it has to remain platted for 21 years unless the homeowners agree to change it? And I don't know the answer to that. I tried to call down and they told me there was nobody in, at the planning and zoning that could answer that. Or do we need to find that out from the city attorney's office? Because what's the good of having a deed of dedication if...
And I think,
Answer that.
isn't some of that wording, because I read through the packet, isn't that part of that in the deed of dedication, is that in our packet?
The original
So,
one?
yeah, because that
This is
language.
the original one.
Okay.
Original
Because I
one.
remember reading through the packet and reading that language, so
maybe
I'm
you
thinking
can
that's in
address
here.
that.
I'll try to get through this quickly. Again, I'm Mike Young at 215 Pauline Place in Waterloo. And I've got all the deeds of dedication here. And what all the deeds of dedication say are the same thing, that no lot may be split to increase the number of lots in said subdivision. So it doesn't say lots can't be split. It says they can't be split to increase the number of units of lots in the subdivision. And they all say that. Nottingham Addition, Nottingham First, Nottingham Heights, Nottingham Second, and now Nottingham Third. And so this part of Lot 11 is not included, I'm sorry, Ms. Wolf, you own Lot 2?
Right.
Okay, 2. But not that, the part that's part of Lot 11 is not her lot. It's not taking it from that. That's owned by the developers. And so that's what the platting process is here. So again, there was no restriction in any of the deeds of dedication that says that the lot can't be taken to add lots. It was just saying you can't split a lot to increase the number of lots in a subdivision. So you couldn't have 6, let's say, in Nottingham First and make it 8 or 12. But there's no restriction against adding a lot. And so the 21 years, that gets to how long the covenants run for the property. It's not how long the deed of dedication. But that gets back to the larger point, and it was talked about earlier about what the ordinances are and what the ordinances tell us to do. But I think it's important to point out here, this area is already zoned for residential. It's already on the future land use map. What we've got before us today is just for the plat, to approve the plat, and by the zoning ordinance, the city staff can talk about this more. It's just to see whether the plat complies with our city ordinances. And this thing has been looked through 6 ways from Sunday, and it shows that it does meet all the city requirements. So we've gone through that. Now, there are some questions, some things that were brought up, and I'll just go through this real quickly.
Before you finish that, can I ask another question? When it says no lot may be split to increase the number of lots,
In
we
said-
had,
in this subdivision.
we had 4 lots. So that cannot be a lot then to
And
be built on.
you'll still have 4 lots. It's just saying you're not gonna take lot 3 up there and then
So
split
you're
it
gonna
into
go
lot
back
1
to
and
the
2.
original 422.65 feet of Lot 2. That was the original plat. This is the plat that I got from the city. And there's gonna be no, that's not gonna be any part of your Lot 11.
No, you own the part of lot 2, you don't own the triangle
Right,
there. Okay.
but this was Lot 2
Okay.
before I bought it. So according to, when they split it, no lot may be split to increase the number of lots.
In this,
So-
but the important part in there is in this subdivision. So we're
Right.
not adding another lot to that subdivision, we're creating a new subdivision.
But you
And
would
that's
be
what
if
the
you
process
didn't
proposed.
replat that into your new one.
I guess I don't quite follow, but all I can say is we've got the application that's before you here. And I might turn it over to city staff and talk about, this is the plat question. We're not rezoning it. We're not adding the subdivision. On all these plats, this has been marked for future development, and that's what we've got here. I know it's tough for the neighbors because this has always been an open area, and they've always had that view there. But the fact of the matter is, this has always been shown as future development, and that's what we're doing now.
Thank you. Is there any final comments, sir? We're gonna, if you'd like to come forward, if we could, if that's okay with you, just for the sake of time, and we need a quorum for this vote, so I'm not trying to rush.
if we don't finish by 7:30, we will not have a quorum. We will not be able to vote on this, if I'm correct. So, sir, please.
I'm George Stigler, and I live at 4616 William Drive. And I don't intend to go on for 30 minutes or so. I intend to make my presentation relatively brief, and I'll hopefully get you to that 7:30 commitment. First, I want to tell you that I've been into the staff of the Planning and Zoning Commission 2 or 3 times over the last month or so, and I found them very professional and very nice people to work with. And I believe this young lady may have waited on me once or twice, and I found her to be a thorough professional and very accommodating in everything I asked her to do. She willingly did it. And so when I make these following comments, please don't take this personally. I'm simply saying that professionally, I disagree with the assessment that has been made in terms of urging you to accept the platting of this property. In your recommendation for today's meeting, she made 2 addresses to the various points that were raised on September 9. And again, I don't mean to nitpick, but I do believe that it shows that perhaps due consideration was not given to the points that we raised on September 9. I don't nitpick, but repeatedly, on no less than 3 occasions, the recommendation from staff to you made reference to events that occurred on September 2, when we all know that the events occurred on September 9. And that's neither here nor there, except to say that is indicative of perhaps a lack of due care in terms of evaluating our arguments. If you don't know the day that an event occurred, you're probably not paying too much attention to the arguments that were made. And again, I make no personal attack upon her. She's a very professional individual, and I thoroughly enjoyed the times that I came down and she waited on me. She addressed 2 points in her recommendations to you. She took issue with our assessment of the size of the various lots, and she also took issue with the water problems that we maintain this area has. And Mr. Young, when he addressed you a short while ago, raised issue also with the water concerns that we have complained about. And he showed you, could you put up again that map that Mr. Young used with the red line on it? Would it be possible to put that up on the overhead? And he showed you various explanations as to the water problems and how really they're not a significant issue. You've got to understand that this commission has a responsibility not just to individuals such as those from Robin Hood Enterprises, but in a larger sense, they owe an obligation to the community. Your regulations require that the staff and you consider, when making a decision such as this, the public health, the public safety, the convenience, the general welfare, and the effect that an action that you propose to take will have upon existing homeowners, and in this instance, future homeowners for the individuals who will buy those 11 lots. And I submit, with all due regard for the staff and their professionalism, that the recommendation urged to you fails in significant regards. Number one, we talked about the children in this neighborhood, and every year that passes, there are more and more children in this neighborhood. At the corner of West 4th and William Drive, a young family just moved in, and I believe they have, 2 or 3 young kids? 2 young kids, extremely cute little buggers, little itty bitty, cute as a button. Gus and Phyllis have kids, and others in the neighborhood have kids. And you know as well as I that there is nothing that attracts a young kid more than what? Let me give you a full appreciation for what has been proposed here today. I had blown up this map that has been repeatedly used, and the reason that I blew it up was because, unfortunately, I've reached that point in my life where I simply can't read small writings. Carol, there's a huge blow up. No, there it is. If I may approach, let me show you what has been proposed in terms of the sheer magnitude of what has been proposed. You will see what has been alternatively referred to as a retention pond, a detention pond, and what we regard as a borrow pit, because that's basically what this is. What Robin Hood Enterprises will do is dig out this area, and they will use the dirt that they take from this area to build the road and to build up those lots so that this area becomes saleable. This, in our estimation, is not a detention pond and is not a retention pond. It is a borrow pit, plain and simple. They need that degree of fill to make their subdivision work. And without that degree of fill, the subdivision would not work. Look at that thing. That fill borrow pit is about 1,200 feet long. That's a quarter of a mile. At its widest point, this thing is about 120, 130 feet wide. And according to Mr. Young, when he made his presentations a short while ago, it's going to be 3 to 5 feet deep. And we have reason to believe that marginally it may be deeper. Now, he took issue with my assessment that this thing is going to be filth unlimited. And I stand by what I said. You're going to have water standing there stagnant for days on end. You're going to have mosquitoes. You're going to have geese. And if you know anything about geese, there is no filthier animal in terms of droppings than geese. You're going to have young kids playing in that water. And there's a possibility with a very young kid, one of them could fall into that water. And they are so far removed from the homeowners and their parents that if they fall into that water and cannot get out, they could very well drown.
For the sake, oh, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, only because we have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I will cut this as quickly as I can. I'm simply saying to you that you have to concern yourself with the children in the neighborhood. You have to concern yourself with the dangers, not only of drowning, but a child falling into that water, breathing in that filth, and then suffering lifelong damages and injuries because of the filth contained in that water. You also have to take into consideration what he said, what Mr. Young said about the water. He says that, well, if there had been a major production of water, Channel 7, the news, somebody would have reported it. And then he said, I said what I said, and indeed I did. But I was not the only one who told you last month that there was a substantial problem with water rising to a rather high degree. And when that water rises, the people who buy those lots, especially those lots 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9, that back up onto Prescott Creek, are going to have lakes and problems in their homes. I want to cut this short. I had a lot more I wanted to say. I'll simply say this and then I'll sit down. There's a belief that the owners of Robin Hood Enterprises have that if you own property, you can do with it as you will. And in 99% of the cases, that is entirely true. But what they don't tell you is that this borrow pit lies in a floodway. And because it lies in a floodway, they need permission from the Board of Adjustment, and most important, they need permission from the Department of Natural Resources. They believe that they'll be able to tie their tile in. And according to Mr. Young, he believes, and Mr. Clausen, that they're going to be able to put culverts in from this borrow pit and drain it into Prescott Creek. They believe that. That's what they told you. What they didn't tell you is that they do not have permission from the Department of Natural Resources to do that, and until they get permission from the Department of Natural Resources, they will not be able to do that. We're asking you to turn this project down for two reasons. Number one, it lacks merit, and number two, they do not have the necessary permits. They don't have a permit from the Board of Adjustment, and most important, they don't have a permit from the Department of Natural Resources. And one of two things will happen if this thing goes forward. You're going to have another Summerland on your hands, and you're going to have another Sunnyside South on your hands, to where they believe that they can do this without complying with the law. And they're going to find, in short order, that they do need that permit from the DNR. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing, sir. And I want to thank all of you for attending here. Because we do have to finish, because we need to keep quorum, I'm going to respectfully ask that we get a motion for to close the hearing so we can move forward.
This is, you don't need to close the hearing. This is Schrader with staff, and real quick, because I don't want to delay it either, and I, just respectfully disagree.
Wait a minute. Now, I'm tired of this. No, wait a minute.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm tired of this man being a water carrier for this enterprise. He works for the staff. His job is to be an impartial arbiter and not to pop up every 3 or 4 minutes making an argument on their behalf.
It's not an argument on the behalf.
Yeah.
The indication was that the request would need approval from the Board of Adjustment and the DNR. The zoning ordinance does not require that. It requires floodplain improvements that require special permits. Special permits go before the Board of Adjustment, and if it involves a special permit involving floodplain development, it also has to go to the DNR. This is not a floodplain special permit. Sorry, it does not need approval of the Board of Adjustment or the DNR.
And I want.
Already denied that request.
I'm going to ask for a respectfully point of order, and I understand this is getting. You are very passionate. This is your area, and I understand. I want to assure you, we're volunteer. We live here. We're not paid. We live all over Waterloo. We come because we're just like you. So we do take everything, and I just want to clarify, we are reading everything. We get our mailings. We get this. We read. We will consider everything. That's why we're here at this time. And I appreciate everyone and the commission and the staff for staying this late. But I'm going to call the commission forward to see if there's any other questions, and I'd like to see if we can either have a motion or move this forward so that we can get a vote to decide if we are going to vote yea or nay on moving forward with the, if I can find the original here, 3 things, if we can wrap that up, if we can possibly, I know there's 2 related, 1 street, but I think without the first 2, the street doesn't go through, if I'm correct. So we should separate that very quickly. If I can get a motion, unless there's any other discussion from the, yes.
This is Thornsberry. I'm curious, the 27 signatures on the petition, is that representative of the entire ownership there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
This is Morrison. I have a couple of questions. I think Mr. Young was the first person who talked tonight. So if you are still here, I have a question. I just want to clarify that I heard something and that I understood what you said. At one point, I thought you said track B, there was some discussion of giving that to the city for maintenance.
We'll track D.
D.
The other side,
The creek. The woods in the creek.
Okay,
Yeah, the woods in
it's
the
got an
creek,
age on it.
that is the floodway.
This is D. over
Yeah,
here.
all the way down.
Okay.
It'd be easiest to see on this one.
I'm sorry, I thought you said.
D is restricted to a single family or 2 single families.
Okay. That was my misunderstanding. And then a question for staff. My memory of some of the conversations about Summerland and having to have a certain number of street accesses by number of houses, looking at this picture, it's obviously a cul-de-sac and there's 11. Do they have to have a second street based on our conversation that we had 2 months ago? Am I thinking this wrong?
The number of units, I believe, is 30. They're not at that.
Okay. And then before we make a motion, are we allowed to have a conversation with ourselves?
I'm good with that. I would think
Okay,
so.
So my
Yes.
comment to the group before we vote is, we've heard engineers on both sides. and we've heard many different levels of professionals, all obviously well-educated and passionate about the topic. But what I was most impacted by is this flood picture. One engineer says it won't flood, the other one says it will. I see the water. And so regardless of the passionate debate, I'm still moved by the same water picture that I was a month ago. I'm not sure what the solution is, and I don't know if the amount of tile is sufficient. I'm not a professional in that area. Ask me a tax question, I could help you, but not a flood question. I'm just saying I'm moved by the fact that I see the water.
And I think we can, all as commission members, appreciate that we don't want to see another Summerlin. I mean, there was a good ending. There was a lot of dialogue between the developer and the residents, but flooding, when we see pictures of people boating down the streets, I mean, and I have to say, when you see hard evidence, there's engineering and there's seeing what's in front of you, and I think it's just getting the information. I don't know. I think it's a real tough one, but you're all here for a reason. So if there's any other discussion, I say we move for the vote, and we're called to do the best of our ability and make that decision. And is there anyone that would like to either discuss more or present a motion?
This is Thornsberry. I move that the request for the final plat of Nottingham, 3rd edition be approved. Be approved.
Do you want to do preliminary and final plat?
And the street name.
And the preliminary plat, the final plat, and the street change from Crusade Drive to Shelley Court.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the request for Robin Hood Enterprises for the preliminary and final 11-lot plot plus the renaming of the street. Is it
Crusade to Shelley Court.
Crusade to Shelley Court be approved? Is there any discussion? And I'm thinking this should be a roll call vote.
Thornsberry,
No.
Hall,
Yes.
Young abstains. Morrison,
No.
Tackett,
No.
motion fails.
Thank you for your interest. Could I ask for my back? Like I said, I'm blind as a bat without glasses, and I need that.
Thank you all for staying. If there's anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been approved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for coming.
I would just note to everybody, this is a recommendation by the Planning Commission. It could be forwarded to the City Council for final approval, which will probably be in the next couple weeks.